welcome back from the desk of Lo. Now I've been gone for a bit because I wanted to do a little bit of revamp. When I first got into this game 3 years ago, man, during my second year, man, I ain't gonna lie, that 2019 one was something special. I got a little bit arrogant too at the time now, too. I'm like, man, I'm putting out so much interviews, and I really had to humble myself, and I had to realize I'm like, man, there's so many people selling interview platforms out there. And then I had to really step back. I'm like, man, there's OGs other than Combat Jack out there that actually do this media thing. So, man, the good brother you're seeing in front of me, man, it's kind of destiny how this all planned it out, man. I had to look back at my emails for this. It started out with an email. Now I'm usually hesitant about opening emails that have PDF files. So when the good brother emailed me about this book called The Filtered Reel, I was intrigued by it because I was like, nobody ever sends me a book, especially like about like the Renaissance we're in right now. So I was like, something inside me just told me, you know what, just click it and read it. And when I did my research on this brother right here, I was like, this man has 25 years in the game. And I'm over here about to put statuses on Twitter about half you media people are my sons. And I was like, man, that was like almost a fucking Eminem moment right there. Now I know you don't like Eminem, but that was like an Eminem moment right there for me. And I really had to come back and I'm like, man, you know what? Instead of going out there with my chest popped out saying like, you know, I'm the best and all that, why not humble yourself, deflate it, and give flowers to your peers, people like The Conduct, Sunez, man, Mike Powers, man. And I always say this right now. I got into this game to respect the culture, to protect the culture, because there's media outlets out there that just they try to tear down our culture. And I said this recently, I'd rather be respected by 5%ers than a bunch of pilgrims, because I can't stand people who come into this culture and take from it and don't give nothing back. Don't even buy the CD for the artist. So this gentleman right here, he's considered one of the greatest writers of the 21st century. And I say that with all confidence because when I read this guy's book, I was like, I can only imagine like the ups and downs that he had to face as a writer coming up in the 90s. Because this is poetry right here that I was reading right here. Like when the way he describes these artists right here, I'm like, man, I gotta talk to this brother right here. So man, he's written for Double XL, The Source, man. You name these big publications out here, he did. But right now he's doing his own show called the Power Write-Up Show. And man, he's been killing the Flex Diamond, the Rome Streets interview. I love the Tech and Steel interview. Those are my favorite ones right there. Yeah. Man, without further introduction, I got Sunez, man, aka SkillastratorLO.
Oh man, peace, man. I appreciate that. I appreciate that, brother. You know, I want to say this though before we continue because I've been doing this a long time. But one of the things I love about the Desk of Lo is that it's very hard for a journalist to come across with a lot of love for the music, you know. And there's a moment if you watch the Desk of Lo interviews, and it's almost like this moment before you ask a question, where that you could see the love that you got for the actual music. You know what I mean? I was thinking of what comes to mind is the last Pharaoh interview, you know, with Channel 13 and stuff like that. You know what I mean? But yeah, that right there, you know, I was like, yo, I love what you're doing. You know what I mean? And I definitely do the knowledge, you know, to the pieces that you do, the interviews that you do, you know, just to fact check my own, you know, so we do something different. You know what I mean? So that way, if somebody watches an interview that I did, it's kind of more like a build on and not just a repeat of what you did already. You know what I'm saying?
Different. That's why it's like making sure it's like, okay, so he asked this, so I'm gonna make sure I come up with something different around that.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know.
So man, I gotta ask you, for 25 years in the game, man, you've been writing since I've been actually like listening to hip hop, man. So I have to ask, like, when did your love for writing actually come? Like, when were you like, you know what, I want to write about this culture?
Um, writing is more of a thing I was raised to do, you know. Okay. So my old earth, my mother, right, remembered imperfection, RIP. She used to make us, you know, write book reports. She used to make us write on all the things that we read. You know what I mean? So we had to have proper diction. We had to have proper ways of writing, and even during these summer months, like when we'd be off from school, we had to write profusely. You know, So it was a thing that I didn't know that I could do better than other people because I didn't care for it though, because she had ingrained it so much that I didn't care for it. You know what I mean? I wasn't even a reader. But
Wow.
yeah, I wasn't. When I went to college and I started to take and I took a class on Puerto Rican history. Obviously, I'm Puerto Rican, right? And I realized I didn't know any of the history there. And then I realized that all the other students, you know, black, brown, yellow, white, they would all, at the end of this class, presumably know as much information about Puerto Rico than I did. I was embarrassed, you know what I mean? So I started to become a profuse reader. And then now, not just reading books about my history, books about history in general, but also books about the music, you know, things about the music. So what's the book of hip hop? The book of hip hop is its lyrics, as you know what I mean? So now it wasn't sufficient to just know some of the lyrics, but like, what do they really mean? You know, what does KRS One really talk about? What are all these MCs really talk about? What does Rakim mean? What does Brand Nubian mean? So as I go through college, I'm maybe like 19, 18, 19, and and this is my old earth again. My mother, she's like, well, you know, you're fooling around in college. You need to, and we're not fooling around in college the way other people say it. You know, we have
Yeah,
good,
like not drinking and stuff like that.
right? We have good grades, but you know, it's not upper echelon. So she had high standards. So she wanted us to do some kind of extracurricular activity. And my brother, I'm a twin brother, right? And he was writing in the school paper. So he was like, why don't you write in the school paper? And I said, I don't know anything to write about, you know, but writing was easy to us though, you know, and it certainly wasn't anything I loved to do.
Oh,
Right.
I bet it's
So,
ingrained in your.
yeah. So I was just like, you know what? I'll write something. I love hip hop. I'll write something about hip hop. But it's different than a blog when you have to write
Yeah,
something that gets published. You know what I mean? You can't change it. You can't go back.
this shit's on paper.
Yeah. If people say it sucks, it's already out there. You can't go back and edit, you know? And I start to write this piece, right? And it's kind of, I guess, I don't say magical because to me it was magical. In hindsight, after all these years, I realized it's because I had written so much as I was forced to write so much. And I was already in the fever of learning my history. And my first mentor in college, Dr. David Traverso, who's my professor, I never met a Puerto Rican with a PhD, let alone multiple master's degrees. So I was already studious. And I start the first article I ever write is called "The Three R's That Feed and Starve Hip Hop: Record Labels, Radio, and R&B." And it was catapulted by the Pharoah Monch line. You know, why do you choose to listen to R&B 24 times a day? You know, like the same song. Remember that in Stress?
That's it.
And I quoted that, and it became the whole piece. And my brother was the editor, so I had lots of reign and also a lot of arguing with him too to put it all in
Yeah,
there.
I bet because it was a different format at the
it was
time too.
and it was long. It was like 2,000 words, but I didn't know anything about laying out. That's way too much for a paper that has like 8 pages of arts. You know what I mean? That's
Kind
like
of like with a rapper who do like 80 bars. It's like, whoa, you're supposed to do 6.
yeah, yo, it was definitely like Cannabis 100 bars. Yeah. It was Cannabis 100 bars, and it was like, hey, there's only like 30 seconds left on this song. Yeah. So I went Winter Wars on that joint, and he put it all in there, and that kind of inspired me. But the thing was, is that I was writing articles, and I was writing them angry. I still write angry. I was writing them furiously. I was cursing in them, and by the next year, I said, you know what? Let me write a column. And I'm from Sunset Park, Brooklyn, right? Where it was mainly a Puerto Rican neighborhood growing up. By the 90s, it started to be more Dominican, more Mexican, more South American, but it was Puerto Rican growing up. And when you look at the history of Brooklyn, Sunset Park gets its respect by going to other boroughs,
He
not
does,
by
yes,
doing
sir.
shit from Sunset. You don't get respect going to Sunset. Sunset gets respect going to other boroughs. You know what I mean? In accident, you look in any crew, there's somebody in Sunset there. You know what I mean? Or in the wings somewhere, but they don't. So it's a silent borough, So I was like, I gotta represent. So I made a column called Sunset Style. You know what I mean? And I had the whole logo with the wild style graffiti, Sunset Style. You know what I mean? And I started to write all these articles that were inflammatory, they were rugged. I was cursing, and I didn't realize that all the magazines at the time, because I was going to Baruch College doing this in their school paper and in the CUNY system, and all the magazines were around the area. So you have magazines on, you have Baruch College didn't have a campus that was set at that time. So they had leased buildings where you would go. So you would be traveling from Union Square to 23rd Street to 28th Street. That radius, when you draw a circle around it, is a lot of major labels and all of the major magazines.
Ah, I see.
So, and mind you, I just noticed how green I was and how much I didn't really read, especially hip hop, because I collected hip hop, but I started to collect hip hop and finally have a cassette collection in '91. It was all making mixtapes, you know, and back then the mixtapes you make on the radio would be quality because there were so many great shows.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, you know, like it's different than saying it now. Like you have really excellent, superior shows from Stretch and all the stuff late, you know, Kid Capri, right?
Oh, I'll give my life not to go back there and experience that. Jesus Christ.
It was crazy. I mean, my youth of 15, ages 15 to 24 is the 90s. You know what I mean? That's the 90s for me, those ages.
Golden era.
So when I'm going to these different buildings, the first thing I actually noticed though is a magazine shop, because I have time between college courses and I go to a magazine shop because it's cold and I just go in there and look and I go, wow, look, they got Tribe Called Quest on the cover. Like this is how green I was. I didn't read. So I didn't realize that they had rap magazines. I didn't realize any of that shit. And I was like, oh shit, I could do shit like that. You know what I mean? And that's what got me to say, let me do a column in there. And I started to do Sunset Style. The thing is that after I kept writing, I realized that I don't want to be somebody that just covers rap. I want to make something unique. So I had tried graffiti writing. I was terrible. I have no skills. DJing, I just got tired trying to collect all this equipment. It was extremely expensive. You know what I mean? And you know, a side note, every single studio I ever interviewed in the 90s, when I went to a studio, it was all illegally funded and illegally erected. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. There is no such thing as like, oh look, we worked at the malt shop and we were able to make enough money to buy these turntables. You know what I mean? No, none of hip hop goes like that. You know what I mean? And so all of these things, and MC, you know, I never tried to MC. I always listened to hip hop and never tried to MC. So I didn't really care for it, you know? And the more I studied rappers, the more I was like, wow, I got a long way to go. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So it's like, and then you interview them and you're like, wow, I just finished interviewing Jordan. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. I'm going to play basketball. I just finished, you know, like it's kind of like that. So I started to write, but I was like, by 94 into 95, especially into 95, I start the column and other people that are around the magazine start to come to see me. They said, who is this guy writing these pieces? I'm getting in trouble from other organizations in school because I'm cursing and everything in the articles. But then I start to make them creative. And in 1995, I write a piece that says that the writer could be the fifth element of hip hop. So I was the first one to say fifth element of hip hop. You know what I mean? And I could prove that with the piece, but I can't prove, even though I can say that the people that knew that eventually ended up in Blaze magazine that called themselves the fifth element of hip hop. You know what I mean? The people I told that to are the people that started Blaze magazine. You know what I mean? But I was the one that came up with that shit. And the reason I say that is because I'm the only one that had a premise of why. The why isn't that it's just on paper and it's something that do with hip hop. It was, what if I become something more than writing about things? What if I make my pieces creative? So at that time, my model, and that's why I call him the father of my element, is Bonz Malone, because I'd open up Vibe, and to me, Vibe was so commercial. I always was disappointed reading it. You know what I mean?
I heard a lot about that in the 90s. A lot of people didn't like Vibe.
Yeah, remember Vibe was founded to be a more commercial R&B minded version. You know what I mean? So it was always going to disappoint. Like, I was there when people were talking about its erection. So I was like, oh, that's going to disappoint. You know, I was like, yeah. I never kept my mouth shut. So I burned bridges by just, you know, responding to things. You know what I mean? And so what happened was I said, if I could write like Bonz Malone, because I was like, yo, how does Bonz Malone get to write whatever the fuck he wants to say?
Yeah, and not get any like green public.
It don't have to be about music. It could be about whatever. It could be, as long as it's about Bonz Malone, it's actually hip hop. So I was like, yo, that's the most hip hop shit ever. It's because he wrote it that it's actually hip hop. That's how hip hop Bonz Malone was. I was like, yo, I gotta get to that level. Like I started writing my column like that. And I started to do like, I used to try all these styles, like writing essays that rhymed, but in such a structure that it looked like an essay. So you wouldn't know it rhymed unless you read it. You know what I mean? I would try to write pieces backwards, you know what I mean? Like all this kind of things like that, you know? So I was making up all these things and just playing with things. And I tried to bring that into magazines as around because the people that came up to me were in Vibe magazine. And Vibe magazine had a when they started to do the web in 1996, they had vibe.com/the suicide, DASEWA side.
Oh, wow.
No, very few people know about that, right? And it was supposed to be the more hardcore version. The problem is that my experience was they made me an editor, and every time I went to Vibe magazine, I was like, yo, I'm gonna meet Bonz Malone. He was never, he's never around. I didn't know that, he's just giving the article and you leave. I thought they all had desks. And you know what I'm saying? I don't know anything. And I go in there and I'm like, okay, so how can we get in there? I said, no, they don't have the room open. They don't have the room open. So I never got to do anything. I never got to do anything there. You know what I mean? Even though some of my pieces got put in there, but I never got to edit really, like say what goes in.
Yeah.
Change things, rearrange things, lay out things. I did none of that. I just got the title. So those guys eventually started or moved into probably the first wave of XXL.
Oh.
And then I become a freelance writer. But then I didn't know you could have a career in this. And when I look back, I couldn't make a career at this because I couldn't like the music that they were willing to like.
Review.
Put it there. Like not just review, but magazines at that time, they will love some of the best music out. And a lot of that in retrospect is because there wasn't a lot of bad music. You know what I'm saying? If you took every trash, if you went back, right? You, Lo, you go back and you go, I'm going to collect every shitty album from 1996, like real trash. You won't have that much to make up a magazine. Your magazine is still going to get stuck with some Outcast aliens. It's going to get stuck with some Tupac. It's going to get stuck with some Fugees, right? You still, Mobb Deep, you still have space to put good stuff in. So it's kind of like that back then. The quality was very good because the record labels didn't know how to make a bullshit product. And young kids that wanted to get on labels didn't know how to make a sellout version that would be appealing. All they knew how to do was imitate what was already blowing up. And at that time, the good stuff was still in the street.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like before the net and everything.
Right, yeah. So what do you imitate? Well, I see Nas everywhere. I see Wu everywhere. Maybe I could get on like that. So
Method Man, I heard like right? the guy back then too.
Yeah, you still imitate good stuff. You know what I mean? That was quick to change though by the late 90s. So I'm burning bridges everywhere because I give my honest opinion about stuff. And I'm thinking like, they're from Brooklyn, I'm from Brooklyn, like, maybe, you know what I mean?
They understand.
They're gonna see it and they're not white people. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not like going like, these are white folk, they don't understand it. These are brothers. So I'm like, and I was always burning bridges, but I didn't know I was burning bridges though. I didn't know I was doing that. You know what I'm saying? So I end up staying as a freelance writer because I'm not giving up my job. And I'm not giving up my career in school. Like I'm gonna get my degree. I'm thinking that way. And because I wanted to honor what my mother was telling me. So I end up being a freelance writer for XXL. I end up going to magazines that those brothers end up going into. But there's a lot of magazines I refuse to go to. Like and that's one thing I say, like when I teach a lot of students, right? Over the years at the law school in Mecca, right? And I've been teaching there for 20 years.
Oh, wow.
So I've taught hundreds of students, and one of the differences between back then and today is that people don't see the mountain climber with the electric guitar. In other words, you don't see that person that is telling you to sell out. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't mean that you, like Lo, isn't choosing realness over fakeness. It means that there is no individual in front of you saying, hey, Lo, if you just put these things in there, you'll be all right. There's no one there. It's basically on your shoulder. You know what I'm saying? It's basically imaginary. It's basically illusionary. I was still at a time where I could see that person, you know, that person saying, hey, you don't need to do all that. You could do this and still succeed. So I'm saying no to people like that in their face. You know what I'm saying? I'm saying, nah, I don't do that. You know what I mean? I don't do that. Just like Guru said, nah, I ain't doing that corny
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. And that takes
Tell you that
pride.
your
It
chart,
takes a lot of courage
but
too.
they tell you that the chart positions will go up. You know what I mean? And this is why I love certain MCs like Guru. He's my hero. KRS One, because some of their lines would actually come into my mind while these things were happening. You know? So the last verse on conspiracy and daily operation, that verse is in my head when I'm experiencing these things. It's like, but they tell you that your chart positions will go up, you know, and they
Start
you know,
rapping in front of the guy. It's like, yo,
yeah.
it's like, I
And
know
I'm
what's
like,
going on here.
I can't, yeah, I ain't doing that corny stuff. And I'm literally quoting shit when I'm answering people. So it's like people are willing to like a lesser version. And you know, when you see like people get mad on Twitter, when you see like, oh no, that's the way it is today. These are narratives that don't come from Twitter people. They're narratives that are ingrained in magazines. If you go back to late 90s magazines, you will hear things like, um, you know, he had to adapt to the times though. He made more diluted music, more grown man's music. You know what I'm saying? So it's terms that get diluted with people. Like for example, that term um, grown man that comes from De La Soul when they did the Grind Date album.
Oh,
When they
yes,
did the
yes,
Grind
sir.
Date album, that was the terminology that they were using to describe what type of music they were making because they were trying to relate to open up the minds and say, listen, the older listener, you can still listen to this music. You can still buy this because people my age, by the time it was in the 2000s, it wasn't really like, you're too old to listen to this music. You know what I mean? And that's why, as a side note, that's why like people like Doom are such a big deal because he's somebody
Mhm.
that's older, that still makes hip hop. And so like, wow, you know what? I can still listen to hip hop because Doom. And I'm telling you, in my personal life, I was going, listen, to the women I was with, I was like, listen, this guy is my age though. You know what I mean? He's making music and everything. So I can still do this. This is still like a life thing that we can do. You know what I mean?
There ain't no
And
age
so,
limit on it.
right. So it becomes different. But back then it was seen as like, yo, you're finished with hip hop. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Because
And
like it's like what you said too. Because I like how you put like the early 2000s is like the dark ages. Like I don't
right.
know if you've ever seen Star Wars, but if you were
Of
watch it,
course. Yeah.
oh okay, you'd be surprised who never seen Star Wars. But
Yes, I am something. I always get surprised with somebody who hasn't seen Star Wars.
yeah, it's like you never seen this. Like you know how much rappers reference this. Like so, I like to refer like the '90s and the '80s, like the where the Jedi's were around, like were like open, and then like the Dark Age, like the 2000s, like when Darth Vader and all that other shit came in. It's like
Right, right,
so when you said the Dark Ages for the early 2000s, I was like, yo, I get it because there was more like it was so saturated because like
right.
more dumb music. So like I like to refer as Cameron. Cameron's first two albums were lyrical, and then this guy signs to Rockefeller in 2000. He's like, a bye, like
Right.
what
Here's the
the
thing.
fuck?
Here's the thing. Why I was always labeled a hater. When Cameron's first two albums came out, though, I was telling people he was going to cross over, and that was
Oh,
the.
so you've
You know what I
seen
mean?
this?
So I'll tell you. I'm gonna tell you why. When you talk about like burn bridges, it's your perspective about music to be ahead of it. In 1994, in about December, no, right? Biggie's, no, not even December, November, when Biggie's just being released, this Ready to Die album. I'm a Puerto Rican kid out in front of Beat Street, out in DeKalb Avenue. And I'm saying Biggie's gonna ruin hip hop because and they said, what are you talking about? This shit is hard. I said, listen, it's the A side, B side. Nobody's ever done that where they give you an A pop side and a hardcore B side.
Yeah.
And nobody felt it like that except people like me because it's my perspective. Because I stayed in my perspective, I was able to see things differently. 1994, I don't experience Biggie through Juicy. I experience Biggie through Things Done Changed, Machine Gun Funk, because
Wow.
I listen only to the underground shows.
Yeah, they
So
won't play Juice.
when I go on TV and I see videos on Video Music Box and I see Juicy and I see Big Papa, I said, oh man, he's selling out. And people forget that in 1994, one crossover track was considered vastly commercial.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? It just takes one. And using Isley Brothers Between the Sheets with no real work on it is crossover.
oh
You know what I
yeah.
mean? It's absolute crossover, especially in a time where you like got the smallest inch reel where you have to do all this work, and people like Large Pro are like going over that inch reel to sample, to chop, and all this, and you just are able to go over and just loop a very mainstream song, you know what I mean, and clear the credits with no problem, you know, clear them with
Yeah, like it's your own. Yeah, exactly.
no problem, you know what I mean. And when he came, there was two albums that people loved that I like. I don't say I love Ready to Die because I experienced so much negativity with that prophecy. And
Yeah.
that's my experience with Ready to Die. Experience that nobody has because nobody was saying that. Nobody was saying that the A-pop B hardcore side is going to lead to, it's like a rocket. You blow up with that A-pop B side. The B side is the actual rocket ship that explodes and gets you into space. But what happens when you get into space? That B side, the
Yeah,
rocket
just the
part, just latches off and just floats and dissipates. And that's exactly what happened. Now you don't need the hardcore music. You know what I mean?
Now that you say
And
that.
that formula is what I was writing about, and nobody wanted to publish that. People refused to publish that. Now this is at the same time where now I'm writing about technical stuff in music, like a review, and I'm trying to write technical reviews of music, but creatively done. Inject my prose and even inject poetry into it. And it is being neglected, denied, and chopped every single time.
Yeah, I can only imagine the things that they
So,
chop because
yeah, so I have
you can't
no.
do this.
I got into, there was a thing on recently on Instagram where they put up Big Punisher Forever. That Instagram, they posted up the double XL review for Capital Punishment, right?
Oh, I actually got that
And
on the notes.
I was the one who wrote that. And everybody on it was like, oh man, this guy ain't shit though. They need to tell somebody he ain't shit and this and that. And mind you, they don't know anything about the game. They don't know that our writers never pick the grades for the albums in any magazine. And I know because when people go, oh, you were just a double XL. No, I was at Source, Vibe, Double XL, Hip Hop DX, everything, Stress Magazine. I was at all of them.
Oh, stress.
Every single one that you could think of. Hook.com or One Love Magazine that was like the size of a phone and shit. You know what I mean?
Or like things like that.
I was everywhere. And I was telling them that they take away your style. And if people ever read that again, if you go to Big Punisher Forever and read the review that I wrote there, you're going to see a shift in stylistic writing.
It's on the screen for the people because when I do the edits, when y'all see it's on the screen.
Yeah, you can read through it. You'd be like, yo, it literally shifts from writing style, but people don't read anymore, so they don't know that. You know what I mean? And when you write for magazines, it's a conveyor belt. You know what I mean? Every single editor gets to look at it and they chop it up to make it look like what the Source or the Vibe or the Double XL is supposed to write like.
Right there.
You know, so everybody has the same style of writing. Another reason why I had so much love for Bonz Malone, because not only was it dope, you weren't allowed to cut his shit up. Yeah, and I found that shit amazing. So I never got to do the element that I wanted to show on, you know, in the magazines that I was in. You know what I mean? It was only when I call the 2000s the Dark Ages, I can prove it because it got cited in one book. I never got to publish it, but I wrote a long piece that was called Why Hip Hop Died. In 1999, I wrote this.
Wow. This is like before. Like,
and it was published in Raquel Rivera, PhD's, Dr. Raquel Rivera, PhD, her book, New Eurekans from the Hip Hop Zone. You could see it cited at the end. You know what I mean? It's my only proof that it exists. Even I lost the original paper, right? You know, with floppy disk and all that shit. You know what I mean? And it was 1999, and I had bought the most albums I've ever bought in my life. I bought almost 100 albums. I had never bought that many hip hop albums. There never was that many hip hop albums to buy, and for some reason the feeling wasn't there. Oh. I think some of that was personal because in 1999 I also got the knowledge of myself. So the way I saw the world changed completely.
Yeah, and the
You know
way
what I'm saying?
you actually take it musically.
Right. So
too.
everything that I wrote was not right and exact to me. So everything I was listening to, I was hearing differently. So it has a combination, but nothing gave me that feeling. So what happened was I wrote that piece. When the 2000s came and I called it the Dark Ages, by 2002, I called it the Dark Ages. And it was because nobody was really graduating. 1999, right? 1998 to 99. Mos Def, Lauryn Hill. There's another one. Mos Def, Lauryn Hill. I'm thinking somebody else. But let's just use those two, Mos Def, Lauryn Hill. They're the only ones that really graduate. You know what I'm saying? DMX doesn't count though because DMX was already given that graduation. It was like automatic graduation. If you read press releases that were given to magazines, and that was a big deal back then because writers didn't really. These writers suck. They weren't writing. They were just taking the press release and putting it in there.
Oh,
You
so
know what I
like
mean?
copy and paste.
Right. And again, I tell people it affects my experience because the way they hyped up DMX was DMX literally was marketed as do you very subliminally, do you miss Tupac? Do you miss the savage nigger that, and I'm using ER, do you miss the savage nigger that will go all out and put all this emotion out there for you to see and be a martyr for you every single record? This is the kind of press releases that, and the way that DMX was pumped out. It was done very subtly and it was done very despicably. And it made me be very wary of DMX because nobody wanted to admit that DMX's music at the time was much more diluted than other music that was coming out in 1988. You compare what Outkast was doing, what Muggs was doing. Remember Muggs' first solo album?
That chapter.
What Primo did on Moment of Truth, what Pete Rock did with Soul Survivor.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Survivor, yeah.
Compare those records that I just mentioned with what Swizz Beatz was doing with DMX.
Yeah.
That's a crossing over of, and by a dilution. And I don't think it's all because Swizz Beatz is deliberately diluting. I think that he's just not as good, but a diluting of the music that they latched onto, you know what I mean? And so you get like the Dark Ages, you get even the great artists of Dark Ages are coming in a more diluted package. And that's a point that people don't want to understand about the Locks, about DMX, about artists like that. You know what I mean? And at the same time, I'm covering music and I'm like, yo, where are the people writing about Jean Grey, Mr. Liff? You know what I mean?
Wow,
you know, all of these people that are doing great stuff, you know what I mean? And it just becomes an underground that now becomes a niche. You know what I'm saying? And that's why I called it the Dark Ages. And magazines by 1999 were this thick. They turned into
that's true.
because they were crossing over and selling out. And the language in magazines was, this is language, common language inside magazines and writers and editors. Eminem is going to make us so much money. We will promote him as one of the greats. Absolutely. And to me, in 1999, to say that he's the greatest of all time, or even to put him in the conversation, is completely disrespectful. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
In 2021, it's just silly talk. In the early 2010s, you could say he's a great MC. In 2020, you could say he's a great MC, right? But to say he's in the GOAT conversation, or he's in all time in 2020, and people don't notice that they were saying this in 2000 because the term GOAT didn't exist.
That's true.
Remember, LL said that in 2000.
I was gonna say LL Cool J coined that.
You know what I mean? So all of these things happen. You see types of writing, like when they say, I'll give you an example. When people say Biggie is an MC and Tupac is a performer, that's language from magazines. I was there with the people that made up that shit. And I was there burning bridges again, saying, that's full of shit. You know what I'm saying?
But you're saying it like it is, though.
Yeah. And because Biggie was more gifted technically, but we have tons of records where and actual devices, the inflections, like they're trying to kill me, and all these things that Tupac did that nobody else did.
Yeah.
You find devices that influence people like Killer Priest. Listen to Killer Priest's, what is it? I'm on the computer here. I'll look it up. Listen to Killer Priest, because right, we have to use the most
Oh,
lyrical
yes,
guy.
sir. We definitely fucks with Killer Priest.
We use the most lyrical guy in the universe. You know what I mean? And listen to not just View from Masada, which I interviewed him for, but listen to Priesthood from 2001 and tell me that he's not learning from Tupac. These guys are so lyrical that you don't notice the influence. You know what I mean? But what
That it has on them, yeah.
But these perceptions were allowing people to sell magazines. You know what I'm saying? They're allowing people to sell magazines. So for me, it became a great dark ages, and I couldn't write in there. No one would let me write. If I wrote in there, I had to write about somebody that was really, really underground, which I enjoyed. You know what I'm saying? But they would run out. In the 90s, my biggest problem was that I was literally Puerto Rican. So I wasn't being given the chance to write about anybody else, even though I was more informed about them. They weren't Latino, so I don't get to write about them. You know what I mean? So if you get Wu-Tang, I don't get to write about Wu-Tang, even though I'm the only one that's a 5%er and actually knows exactly what they're talking about in the lyrics. Even though Popa Wu is one of my elders that teaches me. You know what I'm saying? Like I have no concept of proving that I have insight that is worthy of giving a really good piece on that. You know, so much so that when Old Dirty returned to the essence, when he died, right? Remembered Imperfection, A-Son Unique, you know?
A-Son Unique.
I was almost into Source Magazine. I was working as a writer, and the God Day Sun was the editor-in-chief. And so I was going to get in soon enough. And the magazines were so ruthless, or like really not caring about the quality of the scholarship, that Popa Wu, even though he knew it was me that was interviewing, and he let me interview him, but then he said I couldn't use it. So I interviewed him anyway because I wanted to know this stuff for myself. But he said, God, you can't, you could keep it, but you can't use it. And I couldn't take it through to the finish line in the magazine. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna honor what he said. You know what I'm saying? That's the God. You know what I mean? That's my big bro. And he didn't trust these magazines that he wouldn't even let us interview him, even while we were in the magazine. That's how much they knew the structure. You know what I mean?
Wow.
And so it was very difficult to write in these magazines and stuff. And sometimes they just didn't let you write good stuff, even when you gave it to them. You know?
That's fucked up.
Yeah, they didn't want to. And I have tons of stories like that. But it really was a dark ages for me. You know what I mean? I didn't get to develop in any magazine any of the skills I had. And it was really the internet that saved me, you know? So when I call it the dark ages, it was personally the dark ages, definitely the dark ages for media, dark ages for artists that couldn't really blow up, and like commercial artists that are really talented, but deserve to be on a more bigger platform. You know, those artists that they're just too charismatic that they deserve to be everywhere. You know what I'm saying?
Like Rim.
Like who?
Like Rim.
You're right. Like Rim. I mean, come on. Rim everything he does is entertaining.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like he just, you know, there's no way that he shouldn't be around. People like Sky Zoo. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, everything he says is so charismatic that he's a person that you could listen to without hearing anything. Yeah. You know, which is his truth. Because he's so much fun to listen to. He's perfect for that album that he did with Ill Mind. That should have been
Live from the Tape Deck. That's how I was introduced to him.
That has like the perfect balance of radio and street. Like it's perfect for radio, but they don't do it. You know what I mean? And all I did was collect documentation about how that happened. So I knew it was the dark ages. I collected I interviewed radio program directors from New York radio stations like 105.9, and they would actually psychotically explain to me why we need to hear a Mariah Carey song 20 times per day. Like, you know what the answer was? The short answer? It was because if that fan turns on the radio and doesn't hear that song, they won't tune in again. And it was like, the way he said it to me was so psycho. Yeah. I was just like, yo, like, that's really not how music works, because when you hear a song, they take the populace for idiots. Like, people are willing to hear a new song breaking.
Yeah.
Especially if they respect the DJ, you know? If they respect the DJ, like, people know, right? How many years was like a Angie Martinez or somebody on there? If she goes, look, this is a great song, check it out. People are gonna check it out. They're gonna listen to it. You know what I mean?
Well, then you
But
got like somebody like who was
right.
like a key like DJ in the 90s, and then as you see into the dark ages, they're kind of like going like a different way. Cause like I remember hearing stories about like with Biggie, like Funk Flex and Biggie and the Locks with the You'll See freestyle, like he premiered that. Then years later, he's premiering like Kanye and Jay-Z say hand on the register, like just like that. Like when he premiered that Otis track, like he was pulling some antic stuff. He's like, go into the any kind of bodega and tell them that cash money's yours. It's like, dude, just play the record.
Right. Yeah. And then, even now, like, that's not much of a break.
Yeah.
Breaking a Jay-Z record isn't really what breaking.
Oh yeah. No, but I meant to say like let's say
Oh.
somebody new like about like breaking a Jeezy record back then.
Oh yeah. And see, that's the thing though. Payola was one of the things I investigate. You know what I mean? So when we hear Jay-Z for 7 Hot Summers, you know what I mean? I have to give my Chris Farley, but those summers were paid for. You know what I'm saying? Those summers were absolutely paid for. And there really isn't a difference between AZ's crossover tries and Jay-Z's crossover tries. It's just that AZ didn't have that giant bag. And then by the time the mid 2000s hit, payola isn't okay, here's the money and the funds. It's all prepaid. It's prepaid payola. So you're linked in with a system, so you're gonna get those things in. It's like a store that already gets its products from this distribution center. So you already know what you're gonna get. So the payola is already in the paying of the distribution center. So there's no way to break a record. I did interviews with Buckshot, with Drew Ha, and they would tell me by 2000 you couldn't go into Hot 97 on any show, including Flex, and bring in your record and say, look, this is dope. And he'll be like, yeah, that shit is fire. I'm going to break that right now. What they're going to do is like, now, I got to play these. There's the ones that's on the system here. I can't, you know what I mean? And they'll have that. It doesn't matter if they cut up the one in the system or not. It's still in the system. So by the mid 2000s, it's already all done. It's already a payload business. I'll give you another example. By 2005, right? And I know because I was there, magazines that I refused to work for, King Magazine, okay?
Oh, wow.
Whatever those brothers did, they wrote some things, but that was when you first started. I'm going to tell you how, and I say this, we talk about our people, black and brown people, you know what I mean? The original man, black, brown, yellow. What is detrimental to our people? What is this? King Magazine is actually a spin-off of the eye candy section of Double XL.
Yeah.
Double XL eye candy section eliminated another section that a guy who was a great writer, who ended up doing great things in sports because he knows sports, Scoop Jackson. Yeah, look him up. Scoop Jackson. He used to write these dope pieces in Double XL features about classic artists that hip hop samples. So he had pieces about Marvin Gaye and all that. And I don't care if you know about Marvin Gaye. It's always a pleasure to see Marvin Gaye in a magazine. He's the GOAT. You know what I mean? Or see something about Curtis Mayfield. And for other generations, right? And you could have crates too. You could have like, I don't know, Betty Wright. You could put in, Ramsey Lewis. Other guys that you get crates from. But once Eye Candy blew up, that article got shifted out.
Yeah.
But here's another thing that Eye Candy took away, because I was there in these magazines. When Eye Candy blew up, right? And the hose blew up. The video vixen blew up because now she could be featured. That spot for that female now counts as a female artist. So I was at a certain magazine and I said, yo, she's done too much. Let me write about Jean Grey. From 2000 to 2004, she just released the album with Ninth Wonder. Remember when she did the different covers and they were dope? Remember the Cuban
like
Links?
Comic book style, like
right?
a
She did
vibrant
the
style.
Cuban Links cover. She did her Das Effects cover, Public Enemy with Ninth Wonder. I was like, yo, it even has dope covers. Let's do one of those and let's do a piece with her. They were like, nah, we all, you know what the answer was? They didn't even have to give me the usual, nah, we don't know about that. Nobody cares about that. That's the usual answer, by the way. The answer was, we already got our female artist. And I said, which one? Which one? So I could see what artist though. You know what the artist was?
Eye candy.
Tits. It was tits. Someone with tits. That's who it was. You know what I mean? And
yeah, that's definitely.
So now the female, the video vixen counts as a female artist. You know what I'm saying? So now when we look at 2020 and we say, oh, why is it that people like Cardi B and them blow up? Well, the system was already there for now where you could merge the two. So when we say who merged the two, the video vixen and the actual entertainer, that actually wasn't the industry. That was the idea that the media gave the industry. And I get blackballed because I said, shame on those people. And they know that I know who they are. Shame on those people for doing that. So when they went to King Magazine, it was going to be all about that kind of stuff. And I said, I can't sit down. You know, my old earth is alive. She looks at my articles. Everything about hip hop is too much cursing, all of that kind of stuff. But it brought her joy every time she saw my name in print.
Yeah.
And she sees my name in print though, asking some woman about her bra size.
Yeah, that'd be different.
No, we ain't doing that. We ain't doing that. Because I can ask all types of female artists what they are. I know plenty of female artists, and it just wasn't there. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, when people talk about the difficulties that a Lauryn Hill might have had and everything, I don't care about, you want to talk about her lateness and all kind of things. Those are things she shouldn't do. You know what I mean? One wrong action doesn't justify another.
Yeah.
But the things that she must have had to go through to try to change what she was doing, people don't understand how insurmountable that was. This is why when you see her perform in 2002, she's already crying. And that's another reason why I started to call it 2000 the Dark Ages. I'm like, yo, it's in the Dark Ages here. They won't let me write. I'm literally in the dark. So I'm going into the Dark Ages. And then when I pretty much leave it, I'm teaching students I do my own thing. I'm in the 2000s, I get knowledge of self. I'm teaching students. I have my own class. I'm learning martial arts. I'm deep into all these other cultures that hip hop talked about. I live it.
Sure.
So what happens is I start writing again because people tell me to start writing again. You know what I mean?
Was it Bonz Nazareth who like inspired you to write again during those times?
It really was, because the people that really were inspiring me was Hellraiser.
Oh wow! What's that? Renaissance Child.
Renaissance Child, not even Renaissance Child, but the one before, the one he did with Fourth Disciple, Freedom of Speech. Let me tell you something. I was a broke writer. You know what I'm saying? I was a broke writer. The companies I worked for in publishing were downsizing. I was pretty much at my lowest, and those records were keeping me. You know what I'm saying? They were holding me down. MF Doom was inspiring every single record. You know what I'm saying? Because the vengeance that he was trying to do was what I was plotting. The vengeance he was displaying and wielding was exactly what I was plotting. Like, I'm going to do what Doom's doing there. You know what I'm saying? You know? And then I'm a big Wu head. Obviously, I got the knowledge of self, so it becomes more to me what the Wu says. You know what I'm saying? The RZA, the Jizza, Master Killer, you know what I'm saying? These are people that now, with, you know, in different levels though, you know what I mean? Like degrees of separation, many of those people that they know are my peers or my elders, you know, like Popa Wu and others,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? So when the idea of the next generation, can we be the next generation? And then I'm at the source and I get that record, the record that Bonz Nazareth was on, the Wu Meets Indie.
Oh, Wu Meets the Indie culture.
Right. And I'm like, who is this kid Bonz? And I said, oh shit, I remember hearing him because I was following the website with his beats on. He had a website where he had his beats on it. And I was like, yo, this is what I need to hear. But I didn't realize that he could rhyme. And for the life of me, I've always told Bonz this. I've always been more into his rhyming than his beats. And that's saying a lot because his beats are incredible.
Oh, definitely, I've seen that publicly. You definitely said that publicly.
And so when I hear him rhyming, I'm like, yo, this is the next level. This is what could reignite Wu. This is what it means to the next generation. all of that kind of stuff. And I only get one section in Source's 2005 year roundup. You know what I mean? Only one section they give me. And mind you, I'm the only one that heard all the records that came out. I remember,
Probably
you
the
know,
only really understood them too.
yeah, right. And so I get to do the indie one, right? So I get to put Sean Price in there.
All right.
I get to put Wu Meets Indie, and I put Wu Meets Indie, so I don't put Black Market Militia because I feel like I can't put too much. I only have 5 spots, and I forget who else I put. I think I put AZ because he had a I think it was the AWOL album. You know what I mean? And I try to get the West Coast, so I put Zion I in there, right? And Remembered Imperfection, the brother that just returned from Zion.
Yes,
You know? And I put them in there. I forget who else I put in there. It was 5. And I was the only one that heard that record there. You know what I mean? And people just weren't on it. Like, I'm going to give you an example. I didn't have a hard copy. I didn't have a hard copy of Jay Dilla's Donuts until I looked through the source bin. The source bins. I mean, they get a lot of music. The source bins of music had a copy of Jay Dilla's Donuts in late 2005, just sitting there. And I picked it up and I said, this is a classic here. Can we do something with this? I've never heard an instrument. I sound like you know what? When I was at these magazines, I was like those crazy people that say like the doom of the world. Every time I went in there, I was looked at like an idiot. You know what I'm saying? And I was like that with Jay Dilla. I was like, with Jay Dilla, I was just like, you know what? Forget it. Forget it.
So you were like ahead, like you were like light years ahead.
I wanted to write about Doomsday. Let me tell you, I always say this. In 1999, I had pitched Doom. I had pitched in separate occasions, Mad Villain and Thurston Howe to the magazine that I was dealing with.
Wow.
And they all said, nah, they don't have enough stuff. I don't even know what you're talking about. You know?
You don't know what the hell Thurston Howe was talking about?
And I was like, yo, it's just go to Fat Beats. You know, I was like, go to Fat Beats. And Fat Beats, oh, that's just where the white kids are. And I was like, you know, if you want to do that, if you want to say that's where they are, well, you know, how come the white people listen to good music and we're listening to this shit? You know what I mean? Okay, so the white people have all the good music then. That's what it is then. And nobody wanted to write about any of these guys. You know what I mean? And I'm like, how more? It's because they didn't want to listen to something that was progressive. Because how you can't get more street than Thurston Howe. Can't. You know what I'm saying? There's only things as street as Thurston Howe. You know what I'm saying? If you record your album inside a concrete dumpster, inside the concrete truck where the plaster's made, you know, you can't get more street. You know what I mean? But all of those were denied. So I was used to being denied. I was denied MF Doom at the height of his peak of commerciality when he was doing Adult Swim.
Oh, okay.
So I just couldn't get it. I couldn't get anything. There's no way, you know what I mean?
So being like Puerto Rican, like I gotta ask, like when you see like brothers like Pun and like Thurston Howell like making like waves in this industry, like what kind of like because Puerto Ricans, like man, like even like with Fat Joe, man, like they did like incredible things within hip hop, mostly like Thurston Howell the third, because honestly I was arrogant. I didn't know. I knew Thurston Howell because of his Skilligan Island, and this was like 2006. It wasn't until like 2011 till I actually started to learn about Polo and why it was like, because I just wanted, I'm like, why the hell's Polo's always in this? And then I realized like this was like, these guys were, the low lives were going into these stores and booths, and I was like, yo, like we would, like, I may be criminal, but I don't give a fuck. Yeah, we were doing this stuff in Calgary when we were in high school, so we were like many low lives without even knowing it. So when I did the research on Thurston Howell, I'm like, he got acknowledged by Ralph Lauren after all of this. So like even like with you, like SkillastratorLO, like how did your connection of Thurston Howell?
Right.
You got Polo, I can see.
Indeed. Yeah, that's you know, like when Raekwon says that the uniform do mean a lot. That's always been, you know, brothers, people that know me know that my fashion is always represented what I'm about. It doesn't represent the clothes, the brands that I wear. It represents what I'm about. You know what I mean? So if you knew me in the 2000s, you would be seeing me with all types of martial arts gear. All I wore was Kung Fu gis. You know what I mean? That's all I wore. I literally, all we did was train in the streets all day. That's all we did. I didn't wear jeans in the 2000s. You know what I mean?
Oh, wow, jeez.
The whole decade. And the low lives tie in to really this invisible renaissance. So I go in there. By the end of the 2000s, I start to write again, and I'm really inspired because of the Wiseman, you know, and really Remember the Perfection, my brother Kevlar 7. You know what I mean? I can't tell you how much Kevlar 7 really got me all into this, because he just was a great brother. You know what I'm saying? I love him to death. You know what I mean? Like, and I miss him every day. You know what I'm saying? He was the greatest. You know what I mean? And people don't know that he actually had the writing skill of Just Like Bonz. You know what I mean? He really could write just like Bonz. You know, he was a guy that made beats just like Bonz, but he didn't like his own to rhyme on his own beats.
Yeah.
That's probably one of the differences why Bonz was able to, you know, make his music quicker. You know what I mean? And I start to write a blog, and that's because I'm trying to sell my own newspapers. So I go in the late 2000s, I make a newspaper called Our Swords, like Our Sacred Words, and I'm selling that in the, you know, in the streets. And basically what I do is I interview people for magazines, and I keep the best part. You know what I mean?
Oh,
So I'd interview Jay live, but I keep all the good stuff for me, and I give the magazine the generic shit, because they already want the generic shit.
that's true.
So I keep the good stuff, and I have a feature of Jay live. You know what I mean? I did the same thing with Terror Squad. You know what I mean? So I got one of the last interviews with Terror Squad, but I never got to meet Pun. The only time I got to cover Pun was when he was in his wake, and I saw him laid out there, and it was terrible. It was personally traumatic for me. It was just really a sad day. You know what I mean? It was such a sad day because he was such an, you know, a real icon. Until Pun came, people in magazines were still not bearing witness that the fact that Puerto Ricans, not only being a fact, the largest population in the Bronx in the 80s and the late 70s, right? And being co-creators in hip hop, being monumental to many of the moves and the foundation of not only up rocking, but also down rocking, but also in the choice of music, because the choice of music that was being used was with polyrhythmic structures, right? Coming from not just the music, not just from the horn section, but when the polyrhythms come from the drums, that's coming from the Afro-Latin bass, which is really where my people are coming from, the Latin Caribbean. Because American music doesn't have a polyrhythmic structure until the Cubans and Puerto Ricans come and bring it back into the music. You can find Dizzy Gillespie saying the same thing when he said our polyrhythms were only in the horns, whereas the polyrhythms were not in the drums. It's only when people bring out anomalies like legends like Art Blakey or Max Roach who were able to play polyrhythmically. But I'm talking about like a band where you have two different drums. Remember, because like a salsa band has three different drums going.
Yeah.
You know, you have conga, bongo, and timbales, you know what I mean? And you have all these other little things playing, maracas, you know, cowbells, everything is going, you know, and the piano is played like a percussion instrument, right? All of that is influential to hip hop, just like Jamaican culture is monumentally a base of hip hop. The rhythm, the bass rhythms of hip hop, the toasting, the sound speaker style of battling, these are all Jamaican culture. Americans did not make this up. Americans had battle raps, they had rapping, but the way that people rap was coming from the toasting culture. It was not coming from, oh, look, I remember that somebody in 1920 did this.
Yeah,
bar.
they
Like,
weren't doing that in 1920 in the
you know what I'm saying?
USA.
And then some of it is innate. You know, if you ask old breakers, though, they do stuff that looks like capoeira, but they don't know that capoeira even existed. So some of it is innate. You know what I mean? So in magazines, then Puerto Ricans, we couldn't even get in. So every magazine I was a lone Puerto Rican, representing Latinos by itself. You know what I mean? So I could only interview Latinos, and it was very difficult. You know what I mean? And it became a thesis of mine to try to show and prove that. When I interviewed people like Fat Joe multiple times, Fat Joe would tell me things he wouldn't tell anybody else. Like when he told me that they tried to make him a freestyle singer. Can you imagine Fat Joe singing freestyle and
Yeah, not
dancing?
really,
It's
yeah.
terrible. Even now, even with his pop hits, he doesn't dance. You know what I mean? It's terrible. You know what I mean? But I just think this, that the major historical one of the major historical lies of hip hop was to make it an African American culture only, so that you could sell it and say it's for everybody, but it's from originally African Americans. And that's the flaw, because it is not African American. It is Black and brown diaspora. And when I say brown, I'm still saying Black. So it is of the Black diaspora. And you don't have a culture, an actual musical culture coming from a complete Black diaspora of Caribbean, Latin, English, Caribbean, and American all in one. You don't have that. You know, that doesn't exist. And it's something that's amazing, but something that was washed away. So people don't see the roots. You know what I mean? So they don't see the roots. So they don't see that. Look, every single club that hip hop went into, like, for example, we take Jerome Avenue in the Bronx, and every single hip hop club that was there, before hip hop played there, all the old legendary salsa singers were playing there and doing the same thing, having fights, getting into bar brawls, all the hip hop shit that you think hip hop was doing, salsa was doing that. Because before you made street music without instruments, right? Hip hop, you made street music without being formally trained to play music, salsa. Salsa was the first urban genre of New York City. And all those players like Willie Colon and Ray Barretto, they were considered hacks, and they weren't respected by older people like Tito Puente, because they didn't know how to formally play music. They were learning on the road. That's why old Willie Colon records, they sound like they will distort your speakers, because it's a small little place and they're playing 3 trombones, all of those percussion instruments, Hector Lavoe's wailing through it all. You know what I mean? So the culture that was coming out of the Bronx and Harlem was so grimy. If you take out Puerto Ricans, you take out that whole, and also Jamaicans, which people try to do now too. You take away the whole like genesis and try to understand how hip hop becomes to be. How does it, where you get all these people come in? Like, how do you get Bambaataa saying, let's unify by doing hip hop? People don't do that.
Yeah.
In the streets, they don't do that. You have to go through a lot of killing to get our people to not kill for their next meal and all that kind of stuff, right? Well, you have to go before, and you have to go through. I'm forgetting the name of them though. They weren't the barrio. They're from the barrio, but they were these Puerto Rican brothers. They didn't make great music, but they became community activists, and they were Puerto Rican. And before that, they started to bring Black and Puerto Ricans together. And one of those brothers that was African-American got killed, and it set off a real storm of realization. And that's when some of those gangs in the Bronx started to become more unified. That is the seeds of what allowed Bambaataa to come and say, let's do all this and call it hip hop. And that's where you see people that do graffiti could all come together, and he could say that all these things happening has a little bit more unity. They're not killing each other while they do it because of all the things that already happened. That's what makes hip hop happen. I couldn't say any of those things because they won't even acknowledge that this is a diaspora, that this is like a unified thing that happened. And it's a once in a lifetime and like anomaly event. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Hip hop's like an anomaly event. You know, it's crazy. It's crazy how beautiful that went down, because a lot of the roots of hip hop, the Bronx didn't make up.
Yeah.
Some of Brooklyn had these styles. Some of Harlem had the styles. Some of Queens had the styles, but they only could genesis. They only could form in the Bronx, and that's why Bronx is where it all started. You know, that's why you say it's the foundation. It's a beautiful thing, and I never could write about stuff like that. There are still scholars to say that they even say stupid things like Kool Herc's involvement doesn't really prove that Jamaicans are really crucial to hip hop, and I'm like, yeah, okay, you know what I mean?
Like,
that's the most dumbest shit I ever heard. You know what I mean? That's crazy. You know what I mean? It's crazy talk. You know what I mean? But by the late 2000s, I don't do magazines anymore. I try to do my own. And I had done, the last magazine I did before was Lavo Revolt. Lavo, my favorite salsa singer, one of my goats, his name was Lavo, The Voice. So that's
Oh,
not his name.
okay.
His name is Hector Perez, but Vos. So it just became La Vo. His voice was so dope. They just call him Hector LaVoice, you know? And I called my magazine La Vo Revolt, the voice of revolt, because Revolt is one of my favorite Eddie Palmieri songs, right? And it was about revolt of Puerto Rican for Puerto Rican independence, because songs back then were really militant. And when I start doing that, I start saying, you know what? I'm going to write about hip hop again. And it was Bonz who was inspiring me because I wasn't hearing new poets, you know, that were rugged. I was hearing new poets, but then they would be soft. You know what I'm saying?
I
They
know
didn't
what
have the
you mean.
package. Like you'd hear lyrical MCs, but then they wouldn't have that grittiness that I was looking for. I was like, that's something for a book. That's a poetry book. That's not, you know what I'm saying? I didn't hear that ruggedness. And I was like, yo, Bonz is just, oh man, I loved everything he was about. And then by the time I hit 2010, 2011, people are starting to ask me to write about them. And in 2011, I start building with Kevlar. And in 2010, I'm building with Kevlar. But in 2011, Kevlar brings me to Paragon. And Paragon is a designer, album designer. He did a lot of albums, you know what I mean? A lot of Wu affiliates, like Ninth Prince and all of them. He did all this shit. He did my Filtered Rio cover, right? Right? And he says, oh, I'm doing a website called Premier Hip Hop. And I say, okay. And Kevlar's with it too. And I'm saying, oh man, if Kevlar's with it, okay, so what you want me to write though? You know what I mean? And so, yo, you do whatever you want. I said, wait a minute. Yeah, you're gonna get a passcode, and you just write whatever you want. I said, you know what? I'm gonna do that. And in 2012, I start to realize it's at a show. I'm with Napoleon the Legend. I tell the story a lot. I'm with Napoleon the Legend, right? And we're talking. We're at Spit Gems, Fuck the Radio release party. So all of Broken Home is there, right? The Broken Home crew, FU, A1, Starving B is there. Everybody you can name. Billion Man Rebellion, Constant Flow is there. The whole thing is Nems is there. Fuck your life, you know what I mean?
Wow.
Everybody is there, right? So it's like a dope vibe, and I'm talking to Napoleon, and I'm like just doing the knowledge, and I'm like the only journalist there. I'm the only one. You know what I'm saying? There's nobody with a camera, nobody, nothing. So I'm like, yo, you know, he said, yo, what do you want to do with this hip hop? And this is when Napoleon was like really just thinking of just doing this as his only work. That's how dope he was. He said he was going to do it, and he did it. And I was like, yo, at the end of the 2010s, I'm going to be the best writer out there. That's my goal. Because now this hip hop writer of being a creative writer and a journalist historian, I'm going to actually show him what it is. I'm going to actually show him what it is, what it looks like on paper. So after I leave that night, I don't tell Napoleon this, but after I leave, I'm like, I'm talking right with the mother of my second daughter, and I'm like, there's a renaissance here, something to, because I'm watching all that, and to me, Spit Gems is amazing. Yeah, FU's amazing. All these guys, right? Starving B, Shazil York. I'm scared. You bump into skanks when you go to these shows back then. You bump into skanks. Holy shit, you know, Bankai fam, you know, Dro Pesci. I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? Everybody's here. Everybody is here. This is so much fucking hip hop. Don Pacino, Bugsy the Guy. Everybody is. I'm like, and I'm going home. I'm like, Sean Price is at his peak. Rock Marciano, Ka. I literally just heard Ka's Grief Pedigree.
Oh God. Yeah,
so I'm like, nah. This is a fucking in Renaissance, and there's a Renaissance, you know. And I'm thinking of Hellraiser, because Hellraiser is the one that always says Renaissance child, Renaissance.
Yeah.
It's a fucking Renaissance. And I'm like, but I'm the only motherfucker that's there. It's an invisible Renaissance. I'm the only one that's there seeing it. So I said, yo, this is the invisible Renaissance. And I start calling it the invisible Renaissance. There's visible Renaissance. And I start writing things. And I said, listen, not the way that a hip hop writer will be an element is not only will I technically write about the music in a deeper way. Now, that's a hot beat, soft beat, slow beat. That's whack.
Yeah.
I want real details. You know what I mean? And you could write good musical detail without snitching. You know what I'm saying? Right? Like those good British guys at whosampled.com. They always love it. They be snitching. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But
yeah, you can't be doing that.
but the
Like one
thing
of
is,
that's like one of the things like I never really got. It's like if you're gonna do this, it's like shouldn't you do the research of like not saying like, oh, he sampled uh 1970 something. It's like, dude, like what the fuck are you doing? You
it's
don't
funny.
know if they cleared that.
I love knowledge. I love learning. So I love to see what people sample. But then I also hate to see it there. You know what I'm saying? It's like that twofold thing, you know? Like there was a great sample. I forget what's the name of it though. Let me quickly look it up though. It's Rock Marciano's Reloaded though. This is my favorite song from Reloaded, you know, since we're talking about.
Oh, I think I know which one you're talking about. I think it's that 87 joint. I know which one you're talking
Oh
about.
no, that's an easy sample. That's an easy sample. Everybody knows about that.
Oh,
Even
okay.
he would have had to pay for that though, because that's like that's an easy one. But this one is let's just say it's not American music. You know what I mean? It's not American music. It's not American or Latin. But the sample for Death Parade.
Oh,
That was my favorite. That's my favorite Rock Marciano song on Reloaded. I love that song. And they snitched, and I play that sample as a joke because it's a foreign song. I don't know the lyrics at all. I don't know what the fuck it means and everything. But it shows the genius of Rock Marcy. You know what I mean? And so I'm doing all this, and I said I'm gonna start to also write. These guys are inspiring me, but I have to be my own creative writer. And I remember one time I was trying to explain this to Sean Price, because with Sean Price though, everybody was whack. Everybody in
yeah, I heard.
it's just trash, you know what I mean? And he has love for me because I'm a 5%er. You know, I'm in the street, I'm teaching, and he actually has history from Allah School in Medina. That's the school in Brooklyn, because we call Brooklyn Medina. Mecca is Manhattan. Allah the Father, who founded the nation of gods on earth, he got the school, Allah School of Mecca, on 126th Street and 7th Avenue. That was given to him by the mayor of the city. So we own that land. That's how much we did in the community. People always talk about the gods, they're killers. We actually got a building and land from the mayor. So when people talk shit about, oh, it's a gang and shit like that, okay.
Like
but
the mayor's giving you a bill, it ain't no gang.
Yeah. Because for one, Allah the Father was one of the people, him and the gods of that time, the elders, my elders, they helped stop the Martin Luther King riots in Harlem. You know what I mean? And that's one of the reasons how we got to school in 1967. But he is rooted in Allah School of Medina, Sean Price, because he knows a lot of family that knows Akbar, who was one of the founders of that school. And so we would talk and everything. We never talked about music like that. We talked probably about soul music, you know what I mean? Because Sean Price didn't listen to rap, you know what I mean? He's listening to soul music, you know what I mean? And you know, it's common with all the greats though. They be listening to shit that got nothing to do with rap, you know?
They like the oldies.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And so I'm trying to explain to him, it's the fucking most hilarious thing. You know what I mean? I'm trying to explain to him that what I do, and he's like, oh, okay, yeah. And then one day I write it, and he finally sees what I'm writing. He goes, okay, I get what you're doing. It's some different shit. All right. You know what I mean? Because he never would read anything. It was like, okay, you know what I mean? You know, it's a funny story though. I had to edit it because we could edit stuff that I fuck up now on the internet.
Oh, yes, sir.
But I saw him, to me, at the peak of Sean Price was the Christmas show at Duck Down Christmas show in Brooklyn, where he had just released the Christmas song. You know, the Grinch, where he did the Grinch.
Yes, sir.
He had just released that. So I got to see him perform that for the first time. Me and my man was talking bad shit. So we didn't get to the front. I'm short guy. I'm 5'4", so I gotta be in the front. You know what I mean? Get the fuck out the way. I don't want to see your arm, your head, and shoulders. Give me the front, you know? And I could fight my way to the front. You know what I'm saying?
Definitely you can.
Yeah. So we miss out. So I'm like, yo, let's just take the balcony, because they got a balcony at this place, right? I think it was Brooklyn Bowl. So we're in the balcony. I don't have my glasses, but I still have a good view. I don't have my glasses to see far away. And we see Sean Price, right? And he's so funny that I thought he was wearing fake locks to do his show. He was basically wearing his cap with the towel, and it was coming down like that. And I published it like that. And I said, yo, Sean Price was mad funny with the locks, the fake locks. And we had mad fun with that, because I had written the wrong shit. It's like, yo, Sean, I was like a million miles away. That's what it looked like. And you know, you be goofballing. So I thought you got to be wearing some fucking fake locks because you were doing funny moves with your head though. Because you know, when he would perform and he would go like, it's like, I always call Jay-Z's, I always call that the pretty hiccup because everybody does it. They're like, and it became the pretty hiccup. That's one of my slang terms. And I was like, Sean Price would mutilate the pretty hiccup. I felt like he was doing it on purpose. And to me, it was hilarious because he would go, you know, and so I thought this is what I envisioned because he's so funny. And I had to fix it, but I was like, it was a funny thing that we had, but he never let me write about him. You know, like do a feature on him. You know what I mean? And I agree. I agreed with him because I felt like people didn't need to analyze his music like by asking him. Everything was there. If you really understood, you could analyze the skill and the technique of his music. You didn't need to ask him what shit, man. You know what I mean? He wasn't that kind of an MC. If you didn't know the reference, well, then you're just not into it. You know what I'm saying? But he was really at a peak. It was such a peak 2012. It's such a beautiful year. You know what I'm saying? It's such a beautiful year. That was the first time I was noticing Sky Zoo perform with like a trumpet player. It's just a lot of beautiful things. You know what I mean? And by the time the mid 2000s hit, that style is defined that I have, where you're gonna see pieces I write about music, but they're gonna have poetry, they're gonna have prose in it. They're gonna say whatever the hell I want to say. You'll see poetry mixed into the piece. You'll see it mixed inside of a piece. You know what I mean? So I could do anything I want. It's my art piece. So I started to call them art on art. You know what I mean? I'm writing about art, but it's my art. You know what I'm saying? And it's pieces that I would consider them art, just like the piece of art that I'm writing about. You know what I mean? And that's why I called it art on art and science on music. You know what I mean? And the last piece of that puzzle was when when Paragon talks to DJ Toshi and they need a host. I'm like, okay, I'll start going back to radio, because the last time I did radio, when the hell was the last time I did radio before that? Was in the 2000s, and it was at WBAI, and it wasn't even hip hop. It was news radio. I was doing news radio.
Oh,
you know?
wow. So it's not even like what you.
Yeah, I was doing news radio, and I had done college radio with hip hop, but I didn't do radio, and it was only because Bobbito was one of the heroes too. Bobbito Garcia. You know, he's
Bobbito for you kids out there.
I'm a Puerto Rican who does media. You do everything. You do articles, you do shows, you do your own journalism. So I was like, if he does it, then you can do it. You know what I mean? Because my heroes in this were Bonz. It's three guys: Bonz Malone, Bobbito Garcia, and outside of that was really, as a writer and as an artist, was Amiri Baraka, because Amiri Baraka was what I try to be in hip hop. He was that in jazz. He made his own records. He was embedded in the music. He wrote about the music, but he was also an artistic genius, a poet, you know what I mean? And a writer of all sorts.
And he did it everywhere.
So what he did in jazz is what I seek to do in hip hop. You know what I mean? So the blessing of the Lo Lives was I meet Rakim Supreme Shabazz. He's known also as Rudy Lo, the original Rudy Lo. You know, because there's two Rudy Lows that are in the beginning, and he's one of the Rudy Lows. So I'm not going to go original Rudy Lo. I'm just going to leave that beef out. I'm going to say the Rudy Lo that I know, that's the first, right? And like Thurston Howell, they were two Puerto Ricans in Brownsville by themselves, right? So they're founders. They're two of the co-founders of the Lo Lives, right? And again, everything links with Sean Price. At Sean Price's wake, right? Spit Gems and a couple of other people are introducing me to other artists. Nutso, other people are there. And they're trying to tell him that I'm not just a regular writer. And Thurston Howell breaks through the crowd, literally, right? And he goes, that's not a writer. He points at me and he goes, that's not a writer. That's the Skillastrator. So when Thurston Howell does that, right? Because I had interviewed him a couple of times and everything, right? We had always had these great builds. And I was like, okay, when Thurston now calls you the skill illustrator. You can call yourself the skill illustrator.
You got to run with that now.
I can use that. I can use that. And literally after that, I meet Rakim Supreme Shabazz, and he tells me, with all the stuff I do in it, because he's also a 5%er, so he goes, with all the stuff you do in the community as the God, and all the stuff you do in hip hop, I think you should have your own L's, because we're an organization that's just not a gang. We're becoming, and we have become a hip hop organization, and you could represent that, everything that you do. Until then, I didn't wear too much Lo. I didn't wear much of anything. And it's because I had so much respect for them. Not that I would get beat up. Let me tell you something. With this knowledge of self and having this universal flag of the 5%, I've been able to go to any neighborhood and build positively. I don't have problems. You know what I'm saying? And before, in the 90s, when I had no martial arts skill or any kind of flag or anything, I was going into the worst neighborhoods to get reviews. You know what I mean? I was going to Soundview to interview Fat Joe. I was going into Bed-Stuy and Brownsville to interview artists. You know what I'm saying? So I went and got the story. So now I end up becoming a low life. So that means I get my L's. So I have to go to like a event, like I go to Low Goose on a Deuce. You know what I mean? Oh. And I mention that because it's so hip hop how it happened, because I start collecting Lo, and I'm not a great collector of Lo. I don't have a lot of money, and I don't use the boosters like that. I'm not really obsessed with it, right? And I don't really want to wear pieces that other people wore. You know what I'm saying? Just because. Yeah. There are a lot of old pieces that I love, but there's only really one that I would really spend money on. So and I have children, so I care about them more than I care about my Lo. So all the pieces that I wear that people see me wear, I have spent almost no money. You know, people spend more money on their bullshit USPA and Beverly Hills Polo Club than I have spent on my polo. You know what I'm saying? It's, they don't know how to fucking shop. But seriously. So it's about picking the right piece, and then when that piece gets out of stock, now you have a piece that nobody has. Or if it's a piece that's very common, will it be a nice piece that can stand the test of time? That's really how you choose.
Yeah, I see some ugly polo pieces. Like, this was made in 90s. Say that and not age well.
People be buying, and people be buying kids color blocking like you're not 55 years old. Like, look, I'm 5'4". I don't want to look like I'm a little in another bad creation. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to look like that. You know what I mean? I have color blocking clothes, but I wear them for home, and they're not like my fun with the kids.
Yeah, it's not like going out and like doing an interview in it.
Yeah, they're not like, so I have to show up and show and prove my Lo, like from head to toe. So I try to get pieces that people don't have, right? And people don't really care for, or people don't use. And I'm there. And the moment I have to show my Lo is the dopest moment, one of the dopest moments in my life, because Sadat X is there. And Sadat X is the God. And he's one of my heroes, because Brand Nubian was one of the groups that inspired me to get the knowledge. You know what I mean? And Sadat X is there, and I had met him a couple of times. So we were already cool. But he comes there and he says, yeah, God, show him. So he's literally talking about what I'm going to do as I'm doing it. So Sadat X is my hype man while I display my Lo for the first time ever. Who could say that they have like the greatest hype man the first time they get their L's? You know what I mean? And so I'm like, you have to, you know, I pull up, there's another piece. There's another piece. I'm pulling up my shirt. There's another piece. You know what I mean? Look at the, you got to have the underwear. You know what I mean? I got everything. The socks. And he's like, yeah, you know, the God is on point. You know, the way Sadat X talks, it's like a fucking song. It was incredible. You know what I mean? And I meet all these other brothers, and being part of the Lo Lives, they say love, loyalty, right? So many of those brothers in there, when they see that you doing something, they give you things. And I'm not talking about give you clothes. I'm talking about give you opportunities, share their forums, all of these things they do. And it's been a blessing to be part of the Lo Lives, you know what I mean? And that's really what catapulted that, you know what I mean? And it's been a beautiful thing. I love all those brothers. And what's interesting history is that Thurston, Rakim, and Bonz Malone are part of the original Lo Lives. So, you know, Bonz Malone is also part of the original Lo Lives.
That's crazy how it all ties in. So.
Yeah, so it's all like
it's destiny.
Essentially there. And to put that all together, the Power Right show that I do that is about my element of hip hop, right? When I say it's about my element of hip hop, which is yours too, because I consider you in this, right? Because you're quite the journalist. When I do this show, I call it the Power Right show because Bonz Malone saw a picture of me and Prince Power Rule, who goes by Marcano or the Leftovers, which is the collective I'm part of now. He sees Power Rule there and he goes Power Right and Power Rule. So he saluted me that way. So I said, I got to call the show the Power Right show. And I start calling it the Power Right show. So that's how that came about.
That's why I call it like, yeah, because I was wondering like Power Right.
That's how I came out, the Power Right and Power Rule, because I was in the picture with Power Right. I was in the picture with Prince Power Rule. You know?
Do you think if that picture never would have happened, you would have show would have been called something different?
I never would have came up with that title. Yeah, never.
Oh.
Absolutely not.
That could have been something totally different. Wow.
Totally different. Yeah, yeah.
It's crazy when like little things like that, like little details, like, yo, that picture, that was the one that started it.
Yeah, yeah. It was that picture. Yeah.
If you have that picture, you should say, I want to include it.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I'll send it to you. Yeah, yeah. I'll definitely send it to you. Yeah, yeah. It was a great time too, because that was the first time I met Prince Power. We had this great build and we became brothers from them. He's my big bro. All these people, legends, and you know this, legends in hip hop are so much nicer than a lot of these new kids that think they're blowing up.
True. Yeah, that's very true.
It's a straight fact. People like Sadat X, you know what I mean? I've given Sadat X things that he's asked me for that have nothing to do with hip hop, right? He'd come up to a show. It was all dark, pitch black. And I was like, yo, somebody's coming out. I was really ready to, because Sadat X is tall. He's tall. And he came up and gave me a bear hug just for something I had given him that was nothing, real easy to give him, you know? Just the love that so many of these artists have, though. You know, Sadat X, Sean P, all of these people have it, though. It's just beautiful people.
Like,
you know?
like, see that, like, I like how you said that too, because this is the one thing that always kills me. I interviewed everybody from Duck Down, from Black Moon, Smith and Wesson, to like, man, even Mr. Walt. But the thing that kills me the most is like I interviewed all these guys, but I've never got to like build with Sean P. And and like the just stories from like I hear from you, from my other producer that I hear that they had interactions with him.
You know what? I'll tell you this as a journalist, though. You can understand it. Not everybody is good for an interview.
Yeah.
Some people that I really want to interview because I feel I really need to put their music out there and that I love it. I have to hold their hand through the whole interview. You know what I mean?
But with Sean Price,
take them through the interview. Other people, that's just not their form where they'll give you the most. Sean Price, probably the best interview you would get out of Sean Price, though, is probably a cipher. That's why a lot of drink champs aren't interviews. They're ciphers. They make a gathering, though, and then people just divulge things that they have, and people bring up conversation. You and I know that is not an interview.
Yeah.
That is actually a forum. Loosely designed as an interview, but Nori is not doing interviews. He's doing forums. You know what I mean? You know, he's doing forums though. Red Table Talk is more of an interview show than Drink Champs.
Yeah. See, I like the way you broke it down.
You know what I mean?
True, yeah.
Even though they can use the wide forum. Some people are better for wide forums because they're so used to building that way. And I'll tell you this, you know, one of the things about hip hop that is very destructive, and I mean it for all the people I love in hip hop, as well as those that I don't know and I could give a fuck about. Too many of the ciphers that hip hop goes on are not ciphers of hip hop. Like, you know, when you go in the studio and you're like, yo, like Goblin Studio was, or the way I see, because I've yet to go Spanish Ranch Studio, or the way that they describe it to me. What's the other studios? I've been in so many studios, but other studios I've been into that it's just hip hop. You see the graffiti, you see people doing the elements, like
the elements.
You see people collecting vinyl, you know what I'm saying? Like you see hip hop, you know what I'm saying? You see illegal shit, you see things, you see life, but you see a lot of hip hop.
Yeah.
A lot of these hip hop ciphers, where even good hip hop is being made, they're really just drug ciphers. The artists are rhyming about the drug dealing life that they lived outside of the booth, but to make the music, the actual booth is a drug house where they now do the drugs to make themselves inspired enough to do the music. So they talk about not being the custody, but when they were in the booth making the music where they're the overlord drug dealer, which might be true, outside of the booth, they actually are the custody while they're inside the booth writing and recording the song. It's a very weird dynamic. But I have seen more junkie behavior by people that look down on the custody in their rhymes because they live like a drug dealer outside of the booth. But they actually, to make their music, they have to actually engage as a custody. I've so much drugs, so much liquor, all this stuff just to make a single song. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then
you're like 5-15 Zan. Like,
yeah, and what happens is you lose a lot of the hip hop vibe. You know what I mean? It doesn't welcome a lot of other hip hop vibes. You know what I mean? But that's just something that I see in this era now too.
Yeah, it's like that's why, like, I think that's why, like, I resonate. Yeah, I'm 30, but like even like when I was like 27 or something, I didn't like this junky. I don't want to call it junkie rap, but if you do listen to it, it's like half the perks. It's like I didn't resonate with that. I'm like, dude, like where are like the entry, like Tech and Steel? These dudes have a message within, like their album with Pete Rock, man. Like that album is so special to me because it's what they defined on that, and it's monumental. They weren't coming in there it's like, yo, we were busting guns for the past 25 years. It's like, dude, these guys were spending real knowledge about having a family or having kids and stuff like that, doing the knowledge of itself. And it's like
that record really has a dope life because it sounds real good today too.
It does. It like writers like you know, like you don't like, how do I put this? Man, because like I honestly I don't give a fuck about Adam 22 or No Jumper or Vlad. And that's what like a lot of people who get into media, that's what they want to be like. But it's like, dude,
right.
Don't you want to document like the positive? Like, because like
Right.
There's a very few shows out there like we built this off of positivity other than talking a bunch of shit. Yeah, a few of my I ain't gonna lie, a few of my peers started their platform by talking a bunch of shit. But we have that mutual respect because they know what I represent and I'll call them out on that.
Mm-hmm.
But once you get bigger, it seems like you forget about the underground and it's like, oh, I only do mainstream artists. But like with somebody like you, you have 25 years in this game and you go listen to a Bub Rock or a Rim or like an Eddie Kane. And I gotta ask, like,
salute those brothers, man.
Oh yeah, salute to them.
They, salute to them. They even gave me a shout out in the Caminantes album. So.
Oh, okay. A salute to them. See, and like, but like, what makes you like want to listen to somebody younger than you? Like, that's
a great question, Lo. You know what I mean? Like, to do this long, no, I couldn't do it without other genres of music. If you're in my household, with my children or without my children,
it can't be strictly rap. Yeah,
I listen to mostly other music. I read so much. I read a lot of books. So I read so much that most of the time when I read, I never listen to hip hop when I read. Those are other people's words. So it collides with what I'm reading. I listen to so much soul music, jazz and salsa, and all the other, so much that goes into that. So there's so much crates that I listen to that I don't really get tired of hip hop. And I make sure I don't get tired of hip hop. You know what I'm saying? The thing about lasting this long though, right, is by identifying what is wrong with the music. So people say like, oh, Sunez, he's a hater, he doesn't like anything and stuff. If I didn't tell you what was wrong with the music, I guarantee you then I would be consuming it and letting it become part of the package. That's why I call what I write the filtered reel. That's why I called the book that. If I didn't filter it though, those toxins would have killed me. You understand? Those toxins of bad music or bad intentions. Like, for example, you see all these journalists, right? I know, because it does to me, bad journalists will never not be an issue with me. You know what I'm saying? If people say I'm critical to the media first before I'm critical to anybody. My own field, I'm critical first before any other field. And when I look at something that people are doing, I try to see when people do stuff like they only want to do trending stuff, or they do stuff like Vlad and things like that. A lot of that has to do with the way that they were trained. You know, when I was at major magazines, though, by the 2000s, they were already asking me to include said such and such beef into the article. So a lot of articles, again, I become a bad worker, not a bad journalist, but I become a bad worker for a magazine often. That's why I'm in every magazine, because I'm not a good worker. Because I end up going back without that story. You understand? Or like I usually do, I get the story that they're asking for, but I don't include it because I want to know.
Yeah, it's like you
But
always.
I don't give it to him. I don't give it to him. You know what I mean? So I know the beefs. If I interview somebody, I know all the beefs that they had, but you don't see it written in there because I want people to be known for their music.
Yeah, you don't want to know he
You
beat
know,
so and so, and
these
that's what they're
forums,
known for.
right? These forums, mine's, yours, and very few, only a handful, are people going to talk and be able to be known for what their music is. Where people say, I would like to hear him talk about the music. Some of the artists can't even do it. When you read Prodigy's book, Remembered Imperfection Prodigy, how much music knowledge do you get out of that book from the experiences of making Infamous and Hell on Earth and Murder Music? 3 absolute essential albums. You get very, very little information, very little inside information of how it was to make those albums.
We got the
But
outside
no,
of
the
it.
guy that edited that book and co-wrote it with him, and the publisher didn't go, you know, we're missing some musical stuff. No, you know why? Because it has beef and it has shit that if he had really thought about it and the editor was actually hip hop and the writer that wrote it with him was actually from hip hop and actually might have been black or brown and knows some shit about the hood, would have been like, nigga, this is like kind of snitch material. Let's just leave this out because it got nothing to do with you. It's going to come off wrong.
Yeah,
No, they don't.
it did come off wrong.
And it did come off wrong. And it's like, that don't belong in there. There was nobody to tell him that kind of shit, you know? So we get a whole bunch of biographies by legends, and those shits don't have no music history.
Yeah, because I got that book right there, and now that you say that now, because I remember the chapters are named after the Mobb Deep albums, and when I was reading these books, he was talking about the street life and who was snitching on who and Havoc's brother being killed. There was nothing about, we went to the studio to record Eye for an Eye with Nas and Raekwon. Like there was pictures, but we never got the story
The greatness of that book is really his experience with sickle cell, you know? And I think that Prodigy has a great voice, even in book form.
But yeah, he did audio for that too. I remember that.
The person who did that is in hip hop. They're not fucking hip hop because they did that. And they constantly do shit like that. The thing is this, right? I blame also too, when you talk about the quality of what the forum will talk about, like a Vlad, I don't blame Vlad. To me, that's a cracker and that's a devil. And he's in my degrees of who's the colored man, the Caucasian white man, the Yakub's grafted devils. He's textbook in there. You know what I mean? Like, hey, he's like, hey, I'm in there. He's right in there. I blame, and to some extent, I blame every single artist that ever went on there. Because, and I could say that, and I could dare to say that, even if it's people that I got love for and that I even know, because when they had the chance, all of these people, I'm going to tell you this, a large percentage of great artists, like, and for you, Lo, I'll say great artists. In other words, in Lo's mind, he'll say, I would like to interview him. Okay. So anybody that you Lo goes, I would like to interview him. I have tried to get them. Just know that I have tried to get them. It's not 25 years where I just don't try to get them. I have tried to get them, and my forum wasn't big enough, but Vlad's was. So they went on Vlad, and they thought they could say the things they need to say about music with him. You know what I mean? So, and I don't do that. I don't go around going, oh, fuck him, fuck that. What I did was say, my choice was in this 2010s was, if I'm going to get back into writing, even right before I called it the Invisible Renaissance, I'm going to write about what I think is the best music. It just so happens that I truly feel that the best music is what we're hearing and what we're covering. Look, I love Nas, and I listened to the new Nas album because Nas is an incredible MC. But as a totality, that record could never be as great as other records me and you are listening to because it has so many musical flaws.
It does, yeah.
It has so many musical flaws, though. You know what I'm saying? There's no way. There's no way. Now, is it the exhibition of a legendary GOAT candidate MC? Yes, it is. It should be in your collection.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it's never gonna be the best record this year. And if you think that, it's because you haven't heard the shit, and that's why it's Invisible Renaissance, because you haven't heard the better stuff, the shit that makes no mistakes. We have records now, and you know it, that they make almost no mistakes.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
You know, Ty Ferris is one of those artists who like he'll make sure like they
which Ty Ferris album has a song where you go, hey, you could have left that one off.
Yeah, none. He has albums that he'll take all.
See, the thing is, right? Not every MC is for everybody. So when I judge music, I judge it like, what is the potential of this MC, and what is their style? What are the styles that they hit, and are they peaks? And a person like Ty Ferris is a great example because his potential, he hits all the peaks.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And that's what makes it so great. It's more lyrical. It is more slow paced. It is more thoughtful, insightful. Now, then when you judge music, all of those levels, he's at the top. You know what I mean? So it's like judging GZA. GZA is a GOAT candidate to me. But if you need him to be the kind of showman like Busta Rhymes, then your categories are off, though.
Yeah.
So it's like every category exists, but every MC is on different levels of them. And let's keep it real. There's really only like, if we get technical, there's really only one MC that is at the peaks of every single category, and that is KRS-One. That's KRS-One. They really name every kind of MC category. There's only one guy that is at every single peak. Because if you go, no, Nas is the GOAT. Nas cannot perform the way KRS-One can.
Oh, yeah.
So you already got it there. You go, what about Busta Rhymes? Because Busta Rhymes really can do everything, right? He's, to me, in a positive, when I say it positively, he's the ultimate pop MC, right?
No, but I can agree with that, yeah.
He doesn't have the depth of concepts or the depth of lyricism that KRS-One has. So it's not fair. You know what I mean? At every level, KRS-One is at the top. And if you go charisma, you go, no, KRS-One doesn't charisma. Unless you're judging charisma by beauty, some kind of westernized beauty,
yeah,
then you're not getting that KRS-One is one of the most charismatic people ever.
Like, have you ever seen this guy's stage presence?
Yeah, you know, I tell my oldest daughter all the time, though, you know, because she did, you know, I've fed them so much hip hop that it's not the music that they listen to, just to put it right. Salute to my daughter. I love my oldest daughter so much, Luna. She's gonna be 20 years old. We've been disappointed this week because we were gonna go, just to say how broad I have my children. We were going to go see this is one of her favorite artists, who I like a lot too, and I have a big catalog of his. He decided to retire, so the show was canceled. We were gonna go see Tony Bennett.
Oh wow, Tony Bennett.
You know what I mean? This is how much the crates go deep. We were gonna go see Tony Bennett. My Tony Bennett collection is almost at 500 songs. That's how much crates I have, though. I collect a lot of shit, and the thing about it though is that is this diversity of what we're covering. You know what I'm saying? There's so much music that all this ranking shit is all bullshit.
Yeah,
if you notice in my writings, right? You see in my books, I never put stars. I don't use Mike stars.
That's what I liked about it, because you weren't rating these guys like, oh, his word plays at 1,000. It's like, dude, he's giving you the poetry and pain that these people put in the lyrics.
It's really whack. Even after I did the Filtered Real book, I said I'm not doing any. I don't do any, like, when I do my reel of the year, my reel of 2020, reel of 2019, I no longer do them ranking them either and say this is the best record, that's the best, because the only way to rank them would have been to impact. And sometimes I get impact right. And sometimes my own personal bias peeks in, because it always peeks in, you know what I mean? But I hate doing that, because sometimes the record that you pick number 7 often has a qualitative resonance, just like the first one. You know what I mean? And when I write with all this music, I don't want people to just listen to what I love the most. I want to also realize, if you read Sunez or listen to Sunez, you could find something that you love because he's gonna show you the whole universe. I'm fucking Willy Wonka. You know what I'm saying? I'm showing you the whole chocolate factory. You know what I mean? Every candy, not just, you know,
That's true.
what my favorite chocolate. I'm showing you all the candy. You know what I'm saying? And that's what I'm trying to write. You know what I'm saying? That's how I try to write and really cover this. Because in the end, though, there's really going to be only a handful of us where people go back and say, I feel like there was better music at that time.
Yeah.
Because, you know, when you go into jazz music and you study jazz music, you don't have a place. There's very few places you could go to really find documentation of like, who were the real jazz players of the 80s and the 90s? You know what I'm saying? You only find commercial outlets, and you'll have to start with a commercial person who had quality, like a Wynton Marsalis, and then go backwards. You know, with people like us, though, you don't have to go. And if you did it in the future, people would collect Nas, but they might not. It may not trickle down.
Yeah.
The truth is, if you follow Nas, it will not trickle down because Nas. I love Nas, but look at Mass Appeal and everything they do. They're not in tune with the best shit.
Yeah, no, they're not.
And I keep it straight up though. They don't even have the best writers because I don't remember writing at Mass Appeal yet. That's the one magazine I haven't written. I haven't written in Complex and Mass Appeal. So they don't have the best writer. You know what I'm saying? And I keep it that arrogant because I can. So they're not in tune with the best music. You know what I mean? Like there's no, and even with the documentation now, right? You get people like artists that we love, like Talib Kweli, and then they'll interview people that we were getting. They don't get the same interview. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
they don't get the same information. In fact, they get lesser information. You know what I mean?
Noticed that actually.
They get lesser information because
you're
yeah, like when if Talib Kweli or Nori and them, if they interview somebody that I did or you did, they're reinventing the wheel. They end up interviewing somebody that, oh yeah, I already talked to, I did Sky Zoo this year, right? For the Pyrite show.
They did Sky Zoo.
I already did him. I don't even have to talk about ghostwriting like Kweli did. Because I already talked about ghostwriting when I interviewed him with Toshi in 2020.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like they're late to the game though, but because our forums aren't being put out there, and realizing that our forums really have the details, then they don't get them, you know? Look, I put to you this, like, look, what's really the quality, you know, interview out there that gives you details about really which could be one of the top 5 records of the year, the Channel 13, not Channel 13, 13, you know? Yeah. It was yours. Oh, I saw the other interviews. I watched all of them. One was talking about the fucking Mets. I love the Mets though. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, we can. Yeah,
I'm a big Mets fan, but I'm not talking to Farrah Monch about the Mets on air. I'm talking about Farrah with the Mets after. We're talking about the Mets after.
Yeah, like you can like DM or something like that. Not
yeah. We do that later. You know what I'm saying? This guy has too much. He's a fucking legend. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there is none. Other interviews will talk about other things or things that we already kind of knew about.
Already know. Yeah.
You know? So it's really a visible renaissance because even if people say the music isn't as invisible anymore, I think the documentation certainly is. I consider us certainly invisible, you know what I mean? And criminally so too, you know what I mean?
Yeah, because I see, like there's other platforms out there and they be charging the guests like I notice, this is the thing I notice about like other people like us. We don't charge people to come on our platform.
It's ridiculous. It's
ridiculous. But there's other people out there that are charging these upcoming artists that we already covered onto their show, and I noticed that they don't have a Bub Rock and they don't have a Rim interview. They don't have a K-Birds interview. Because why? Because they're smart enough not to pay for this vulture.
Mm-hmm. That shit is crazy. I find it. A lot of people don't get that. Doing journalism this long though, to do it the right way though, you lose a lot of money. You lose a lot of money ventures. For me, I've lost a lot of chances at getting money. You know what I'm saying? But I knew that I couldn't do it. I literally couldn't do it though. You know what I'm saying? There was a certain magazine I was at though, right? Where it depressed me so much, right? When I was there.
You
that
definitely.
I didn't listen to music when I would go home.
Oh yeah, that's definitely.
I didn't listen to music, any kind of music. I went home, watched a movie, and I wouldn't go listen to any music. I mean, that's when it was extreme, though. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I knew that I couldn't be at certain magazines that long. You know what I mean? But more so than even the music, the media is more of a business than even the music.
Yeah.
There's even more because they need a product and they don't make the product. You know what I'm saying? They need a product to latch onto and they don't make the product. So the only control that they could have over a product, right? Because the media is supposed to be a service for us listeners. But instead, they do not define themselves that way. They define themselves by the product that they present to you. The product is the artist that they present to you. So they're not looking at themselves as a service. They look at themselves as a purveyor of a product. So they try to control the product. How do you control the product? You control the product by making certain sounds that are more commercial, more viable, and acceptable. So you start to do reviews and say, this is kind of hot. This is what they like. And this is kind of what's hot. You know, you've read reviews like that. This is what's in. And so it's banging. And he's really doing. I know that there are at least, we probably find about 10 to 15 reviews of Nas's new album that'll say that the little annoying fucking hi-hats and the trap isms that get thrown into certain songs that Hit Boy does, that they sound so brilliant and are so hip and revitalize him to a new audience.
Yeah.
As opposed to me, it kind of embarrasses me and I start to lower the dial because I feel embarrassed to blast. It's a little too trappy and drilly, even though Nas is killing it. You know what I mean? It's the media that makes certain sounds that are lesser, more viable.
Sure.
If we're listening to music on the radio that sounds like a shitty video game.
Yeah, it's true.
You know what I'm saying? Like shitty video game. And I'm like, who prepped us to like this stuff?
Yeah.
Because not one of these kids out there was in the street out there playing that kind of shit and saying, yo, because I was there. I was in the New York streets. I didn't see anybody go, I'm being daring enough to say that this is my fucking music and nobody does it like this and go, blip, 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 you know, do whatever. And people go, oh, that's the next shit. Not one person. It was media convincing you that what the labels were doing is incredible stuff. And then now the kids in the street go, hey, this is what's popping because she is so fine. You know what I mean? That's how it works. It's real simple.
No, but when you say that, I'm thinking back in high school, like how we would find music, and it's like we were like, he's hard, they're doing that, yo, and it's just like, yo, that's fucked up the way you put it like that. Because the labels, I remember like as a kid being so infatuated with the shady aftermath, and then when you just said that, it's like, dude, it was the labels telling you to do that. It wasn't the people. It was. But then when you start to go out and live life, that's when they go into these parties and they were playing Wu-Tang, 36 Chambers. It's like, dude, like they weren't playing this on the, because I grew up in the 2000s. I got fucking Wu-Tang Iron Flag. Okay, I didn't get to experience 36 Chambers. So when we go to a party, we hear Gravel Pit. Like, all right, that's new shit. But when we heard like Tiger Style, I forget what Shame on You, we were like, what the fuck is this? Like, how come this don't sound like this anymore? And it's like what you said. The labels marketed to something else.
Yeah. And see, the good artists like, or even we have to say the legendary artists, musicians like RZA, they take it as a challenge and they end up making a Gravel Pit because nothing really sounds like Gravel Pit. But then you also listen to Gravel Pit and go, boy, but I don't want to hear it that way. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You could hear the mistakes of Gravel Pit, but you could also hear the innovation in Gravel Pit because the drum syncopation in Gravel Pit is very distinct, but it also has the pop flourishes and you're like, oh man. And these are the kind of traps that the great musicians were falling into as well. I never get mad with RZA because with RZA, I go by the Chuck D rule. Chuck D said in his Fight the Power book that an artist, after a certain amount of time of success, his next albums ought to have some experimentation on them. And so RZA being a musician, I actually want to hear experimentation because we might hear the next shit. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of those records, Iron Flag, the W, definitely, even 8 Diagrams.
That, yeah, like
the stuff that
new one.
You hear stuff that fails, but then you hear something like, I've never heard anything like that before. Even if it has some mistakes in it, you're like, yo, I never heard nothing like that before. That's crazy. You know what I mean? Because even still, RZA's sample game, if you're really digging it, his sample game in those latter Wu albums is really good. And he has stuff that nobody's ever sampled. You know what I mean? Right? Like, look at the bass line on Let My Niggas Live on the W. Now, that's the way it's going. It's skipping.
That's like
it's amazing. The way he used the dance hall on One Blood and Ja World.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, those are worth a couple of doozies for me. You know what I mean? I'm okay with that. You know what I mean? Because you can't get those songs without trial and error. You know what I'm saying? You can't get those songs without trial and error. And the daring is that he's trialing error. He's doing trial and error probably at the worst place. That's the problem with the Wu albums. RZA probably shouldn't have trialed and errored while he was doing an album with other guys. You know what I mean? Because they want to MC, and then he's giving him experiments though. So I could see how they got mad. You know what I'm saying? He probably should have done those experiments on the RZA Bobby Digital albums, which
so
they already have a lot of experiments on them too. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, we still ain't got that movie from him.
Oh yeah, the movie. It's like crazy in the clips. Remember the kung fu he was doing?
And it's like, yo, we hired us H for like 15 years, and it's like,
I had the cassette. Remember the Bobby Digital, the domestic violence cassette?
Yeah,
I had that. Yeah, I had that.
See, like with also you, like, because like this is I said this with terminology, and it always replays in my head. He was in print. Nowadays, these kids, or even like, I don't even want to say kids, even like grown adults don't know that feeling of going to the store and like getting a new magazine and just to see what was in it and actually reading, like, you know, okay, let's see, he says this about this song, he says this about this song, maybe I should check this out.
The value in a hip hop, in a collection now is how you collect it. Oh, it's always been how you collect it. So that's why now what gets pitched to us is a playlist. And playlist, you know what I mean? There are people that get hired to do Spotify playlists. And when you do a playlist, what happens is that artist is going to be featured in it, but he's not going to get that much out of it. And what I don't like is that you don't get to really explore the artist's depth. You know, in my personal collection, which is really all digital now, you know what I'm saying? And the digital era, I love it because it allows me to be a journalist that doesn't lose all my money. To be a journalist, though, I have stolen from labels. I have stolen from record stores. I have stolen from radio stations. I have done all that. You know what I'm saying? So now I get everything. I make sure when people ask me, yo, Sunez, artists respect. So they don't go, yo, Sunez, did you buy my record? If I write about it with love, that's enough. Because the only way that my thoughts and my opinions are worthwhile is if I heard everything. The only way I could hear everything is if I make sure I hear everything. And by any means necessary, I make sure I hear everything. You know what I'm saying? So by this time, we're in August, middle of August. I already have about 250 albums. I can give you the exact number. I'm talking about albums this year. Let me tell you how many albums from 2021 that I already have. I make a list of them, right, Lo? And on that list, I even highlight them to let me know if I heard them already and if I didn't hear them. And then I even do a special highlight to see if I heard them briefly or in depth. So I already have over 200 albums.
Oh shit! Not just from this year.
That's just 2021. And these are not albums that are bullshit. If I thought they were trash, they'd be deleted. These are albums I think are all worthy. That's how much music there is that's quality right now. You know what I'm saying? So when I look at things like that, I think that for the listener, the quality can be, you see now a lot of quality is being sparked back with vinyl, where people collect vinyl. And
Yeah.
wow, vinyl looks beautiful now. It really does. You know, some of these vinyls that come out are beautiful. Like they're, you can mount them on the wall type beautiful. You know
Oh
what I mean?
yeah.
Like what's one that I have when it was first starting, like the different colors.
Oh, the walk
Genzu,
one.
my brother, peace to the god, Genzu Dean, he sent me the Wise Intelligent Genzu Dean album, which I loved. And he sent me that as a gold vinyl, and I hung it up.
Wow, gold vinyl shit.
You know what I mean? It's just like shit look pretty though. Like, and then it has like a picture of the pharaohs and in it. You know what I mean? It's
But see,
just
that's
beautiful.
art. It's like that's art.
Yeah, it's beautiful. You know what I mean? And but I think that for me, artwork is in treasuring the actual digital thing. Look, my whole collection is digital now. Everything, my library, my book library, my music library, everything is as digital as it could get. So I treasure it though by how much I have and how and what's in it and whether I listen to it or not. And I make lists on Google to see if I'm listening to things, what I have, the collections I have, all of that. And it's the only way people could put value on it though is really by listening to it. You know what I mean? And being able to categorize it in their own way. So I think that instead of listening to people's playlists, I think people should categorize things in their own way and value it. You know what I mean? With trying to have some respect for the album itself. People don't respect the album anymore.
Yeah,
You
I
know?
noticed that.
And it's funny, we thought that the album would be disrespected by people charging mass exorbitant amounts or just letting it be a collection of songs at a specific moment. But what's happened is that they become like jazz sessions. You know, this is the music we made on this date while this brother out here was in Brooklyn. You know what I mean? And they become really beautiful testaments to a particular time. You know, and that's because some of these guys are really supremely talented, like a Estinak or a Starker. You know what I mean? They can make records of the time. Like if you say, look, this weekend I need Estinak makes a record this weekend, it's going to be something that's going to be valuable because he's so talented that what he thinks at that moment is going to be so dynamic. That's, by the way, that's another guy that
Like a knack man.
he had commercial radio. If commercial radio had some guts, though, Estinak would be so much fucking fun on the radio.
Yeah, he would have. Yo,
You know what I mean?
some of it, yeah.
All of his song, when I listen to his music, I'm going, whoa, you know, I'm doing all these sounds. I do all the ad libs. I do all the ad libs for songs. You know? I do Starker's ad libs. I do everybody's ad libs, though. You know what I mean?
Like with that guy too, Stalker. Man, I really wish I gotta find out. I didn't really get an interview from him, but damn, I remember he was talking to me about that Morther album, and like this is before it was released, so we talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then when he released, I was like, yo, like everything that he said that he like from the concept, like from like the Godzilla character to like what he actually believes in within his lyrics, like to the bootleg collection, he incorporated like all of his best projects into Morther, I like to say. And like he hyped that project for a good 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like I can see why he did, because he knew in his head, like, okay, I'm going in with this concept. I'm not just going in to make a hot single. I'm going in to impress people.
Yeah.
Like, what kind of name is Stalker? Like, I remember, like, I was like, dude, like, you must have to be a hardcore Ghostface fan to call yourself that.
Starker, yeah. I always saw it two ways. It was kind of like a combination of Tony Stark's, but also John Stark's.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think about
Yeah,
John
because
Stark.
there's a lot of Nick quality to Starker. You know what I mean? So I always liked it. You know what I mean? I always thought it was a dope name.
And there's another artist out there, like I never interviewed him, because I want to wait for the right moment though. But I always see, and this one intrigued me to listen to him because because I don't care who you're with, I don't care who you rap with. If you can rap, I want to listen.
Right.
So he's with Planet Asia. He's under I think Planet Asia is Gold Chain Military or something. Yo, Asia, if you want, my bad. But he has this one artist on there named Bugsy Zeno, and like I listened to this one album by him.
Oh, Supreme Cerebral.
Yeah, I call him by his Instagram name. My bad.
Yeah. That's my man. That piece of the God. Yeah.
But I listened to this one album by Soul Train, and I was just like, what brought me to it is like he took the soul, like the TV show, but he flipped it. I'm like, let me see what this, and it was something I did not expect to come out of that.
Yeah.
So, and then when you said like he released another album like recently, and you're like, the world doesn't deserve another one till he fully indulged in his first one.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I need to see what this guy's talking about.
Oh man, you know what? That was when he did the album with because he together they're Clark connoisseurs when he rhymes with Elo Kush.
That's the one. Yeah, I remember
Yeah.
when I kept
And
asking. Yeah.
both those brothers I've interviewed, and I love them both, man. Peace to the gods, because they're such builders, but they're so dynamic. You know what? I always tell Supreme Cerebral, what I love about his music is that aside from the incredible layering and the hardcore attitude, he's one of the few MCs where I actually hear him rhyme, and I love that it's so offensive.
Yeah.
It doesn't
It
doesn't come off like he's trying to be offensive. Like we see so many, because you got to admit, because of Eminem, it's easy to say things for shock value, but they're not really offensive, you know. But he says things that are really offensive, and I find him gloriously offensive. I love it though; it's so dope. And Elo Kush combined with him, like together, Elo Kush's voice and his patterns are so smooth. He's got that like old blues soul voice, and
like
you know, it clashes so much with Supreme Cerebral's, you know, because Supreme Cerebral rhymes in such a chopped, in a fluid chop. So it's like we come in and you know, it's always chopped, whereas Elo Kush is just gliding through.
Yeah, just flying through.
You know what I mean? It's such a great contrast, you know what I mean? And we hear albums from these guys and we hear almost nobody talking about them.
Yeah.
And I always have the hope that people really buy this stuff and really appreciate it. You know what I'm saying? Because people don't really get though that no matter how much people talk about making it and things like that, the majority of the artists that we talk to, they are making it because they have jobs, because they have good jobs, because they have supportive maybe couples. They're part of a supportive couple that lets them spend the time to make incredible music. You know what I mean? And really have a love for the culture. But a lot of this music, though, does not lead to a lifestyle. It doesn't lead to a life. You know what I'm saying? And I said as myself, because I write creative literature. I write creative works. I write these books. It doesn't give me a lifestyle. I need to do other things. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
No,
but you do it though because it's your passion though.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm at the point, Lo, where I can't, if I don't write, this is just the way I express myself. So whatever I did write, it would come out this way. It would come out hip hop. You know what I'm saying? And I'm at a point where I can say that I write good enough where I have to keep writing. You know what I'm saying? I have to keep writing. I have to see where it goes and stuff, you know? And it's a joy because nobody tells me what to do. You know what I mean?
I bet, especially coming up from the 90s and this shit being chopped.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. You know, like, yeah, these are things I would go into places and argue and start fights with. You know what I mean?
See,
so
I think like it was like destiny for you to like evolve into like, because I don't think like in the magazine like that was destiny for you. I think your destiny was like in the Invincible Renaissance area, because I think that you had to go through what you had to go through to understand what you want to do. Because
it's funny you said that, because if I didn't experience what I experienced, the people I'm talking about were colleagues of mine, and they make six figures now at these magazines. You know what I mean? I'm not talking about people that they wrote things with me and you don't know about them. If I name their names, you would know who they are, you know? And they know because I contact them. Like I try to make a living off this monetarily and pitch the way I write and what I do to major magazines. I still do that. Like I still say, hey, give me a column here. Give me an editorship here, and I'll represent all of the music that you don't have if you give me a place here. I do that constantly to this day. So all these major magazines that you see, it's their choice not to have me on it. It's actually their choice not to have me on it. I'm not invisible to them. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The Invisible Renaissance is to fans. It is not to people. They know how dope this music is, and they know that we're the only ones covering it. You know what I mean? They also know that it could stay there where it is because we're not making money off that. You know what I'm saying? And their desire is not to cover the greatest music, because they'll just call what they're doing the greatest music because it sells the most. And they're certainly not interested in covering all the music because they leave us by the wayside, you know? So when I do this stuff, it's not because I don't try to bring my style and my gifts to the mainstream. You know what I'm saying? Or like I'm scared of the mainstream and stuff, because I make it with certain demands. I said, yo, give me that space and just give me the space. I will write for this space. Give me a little box and I will blow that box up. You know what I'm saying? But I'm not giving that space. I'm not giving that box. I'm ignored by people that I know, you know what I'm saying? That I knew back then, you know? And it's not like I don't have work to prove it, you know what I'm saying? Because they didn't write any books. I did.
Yeah, like you actually.
They don't have. They did all this commercially, but they don't have hundreds of interviews. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see what you mean by that.
You know what I'm saying? So they're choosing not to have this music that we love in it. They're choosing not to have it in there. You know, and that's one of the things that keeps me going. It keeps me going because I have seen things I've written for people help other people buy it, and people actually make money and make a better living because I was able to tell people about something, and that makes me happy. You know what I'm saying? It makes me happy because then I get to hear greater music. I get to see somebody enjoy themselves and make a living off of it. You know what I mean?
And like it's like it doesn't get more hip hop than that, because like if you go back to your school days and when you had to buy CDs, sometimes you would have to trade tapes. I remember trading like certain albums for certain albums. I was like, yo, like nowadays you don't do that anymore.
No, you don't. No, you don't.
Now it's an email.
Yeah, it's email. Yeah, I'll be
getting.
But
I won't take up most of your time. But we got a couple more questions. I'll wrap this up here now too. But
please.
But with you, I remember when I was first discovering you. I ain't gonna lie. Before I did my research, I was like, "Oh, he's part of Reb's crew. Oh, he's part of the Walkers." When I totally out the window of that, I was like, "Wow, this guy actually got 25 years." I would like say Reb's part of him. So, how the hell did you ever connect with the good brother Rem?
Oh, Rim. It's funny. It should be because of Sean P. You know what I mean? But it's not though. It's just because I overview everything, and I end up being out there. You know what I'm saying?
Because one of his albums that you touched upon was Uganda Lunch Meat, and I found him after that. But that album, like, I really wish. Shout out to Ike from the Heights, that one of the best producers. You covered that on Graham. So was that your introduction, like, to him?
No. I had heard the mixtape before.
Or the Broken Eggs with the
Broken Eggs. Yeah. And like I said, I still say that Rim is the greatest mentor I have ever covered in hip hop. You will never find, excuse me, not the greatest mentor. He's becoming a great mentor, but he's the greatest apprentice I've ever covered in hip hop. No MC has been under a mentorship and has become so great as Rim is to Sean Price. You know what I mean? Think of any great MC and think of who they had. There are people in this era that are great, like Bugsy the God to Don Pacino. He's really great. That's a great mentorship. You know what I mean? And there are others. I can't think of all the head, but I started just following Rim because of Sean Price. And I was following the music. I was like, oh, Sean Price messes with these kids though. And it was probably because PF Cuttin. It's probably because anything PF Cuttin plays, I do the knowledge to. You know what I mean? And so I just started to write about him, you know, and that was one of the other. I wrote about Broken Eggs. I wrote about, was Cashmere Dice before Uganda Lunch Meat? But I wrote about
it was before. Yeah, it was before.
Yeah, I wrote a piece on that too. And then when Uganda Lunch Meat came out, that was when I was doing the book. So I just put it in the book. I didn't put it anywhere else. I put it in the book, you know?
Yeah, the filtered reel, right?
Yeah, the filtered reel. Yeah. So yeah, I didn't publish that anywhere but there, you know? But all these people that I meet is usually because I'm in tune with the other MCs, and then they tell me, and then I go to shows. And look, I end up doing a show with DJ Toshi. You know what I mean? And DJ Toshi, along with Doc Ock, do the Rock the House shows. And Rock the House shows are crucial to hip hop music. Hip hop, New York City hip hop doesn't exist the way it does without Doc Ock and DJ Toshi. No way. And I'm not saying it because I love those brothers or because I do Classic Storm Radio. I started working with DJ Toshi in 2016. He's what got me back into radio and doing stuff. He was already on nearing episode 200.
Yeah, because I seen on the part and it was like, because I was listening to something like, wait, this ain't something like this is somebody, this is DJ Toshi doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So DJ, he was doing he does production, all that. He just doesn't do it, you know, but he could do production. He does DJing, everything. So those Rock the House shows, if you go to them, you end up knowing everybody. And it's not because of the performance on stage. It's because of everybody else in the crowd. You see the whole scene. You know what I mean? So people like Skanks and stuff.
Oh, wow. Like they're like in the crowd.
They're in the crowd. I mean, it's hard to not notice a guy with an eye patch, though. You know what I'm saying? And then when they go, hey, you want to do a song? And he comes up with 20 Brooklyn niggas. You know what I mean? And they all dope. They're all dope. You know what I mean? Shout out to Shatik, the God G Stats. Oh, man, Pete General. I mean, those guys. No. I always say this, Bankai fam, if you ever come to Brooklyn and you go to Crown Heights, Bankai fam is what Crown Heights is. So if you ever want to know what Crown Heights is, it's Bankai fam. It's equivalent measures. I'm
gonna keep that in mind because, like,
I love those brothers. They're so dope.
Because you got to see like the evolution of like Rim and like where he's going, and it's like,
oh wow, yeah.
We never get to see like.
Let me tell you about Rim though. Rim was always a lyricist though. I think that when Price died, one of the most beautiful things that he did though was continue two things that he was taught by Sean Price. Don't forget about everybody else. You know what I'm saying? Put other people on. Show them the way. Because if you're really good, they're not going to take your way. You know what I mean? And
he does that too.
And because of that, that's why we get to see Bub Rock and Eddie Kane so much faster. Rome Street so much faster. Wavy the Gods so much faster. And the other thing was, be yourself. Rim's comedy is completely different than Sean Price. You know what I'm saying? And I think in the beginning, somebody that if your mentor was so dynamic, you probably would try not to copy him and be your comedic yourself even if you were, because you're trying not to bite. But Rim has such a natural way. He refused to not be himself on a record. And those make these records better and better. And that's why he rhymes so good. And his wordplay. There's something about Brooklyn. Study Brooklyn. J Live, Sky Zoo, Rim. It doesn't matter what vantage point MCs are coming from. There is, and I'm even, I'm not an MC, but I'm a writer. Look at the way I mold, the way I play with words and the way I mold them. There's a Brooklyn way of writing. Look at the way Thurston Howe flips words. There's a way of writing. I think if you look at the way I write, it has a lot of Baraka, obviously, but there's also a lot of Latin American writing. I use a lot of run-on sentences. I refuse to use periods a lot of times. You know what I mean? And that's why they become poems, because I refuse to use periods. So I break them into poems. And because hip hop has such a flow and there's a lot of hip hop in the way I write, that syncopation lends itself to be a poem. But a lot of times it's just a run-on sentence I'm fucking with,
Oh,
and that's a very,
I was like,
very Latin American. It's a very Latin American way of writing, and I had no idea that I even write like that because I don't read a lot of novels. I try to read novels, but I don't read as many novels as one would think. I read more, but I do read poetry, more poetry than novels. But when you listen to Rim, he has this great wordplay. You know what I'm saying? He has this great wordplay, but it doesn't get lost in itself, where he's still not talking about his reality.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Where it's like, oh, he's just playing with words now.
It's like, no, that's his life.
Yeah, you still get the divide though. And then look at him on videos and in the video.
Social. I can't go on social media in public and look at his page, man. I would.
He's the funniest. He's the funniest. He's the funniest. Though.
That's why I always say, like, somebody out there needs to give that man like his own network and his own show.
There's so many guys that if radio really cared at some respect and get artists in, they never did. They always wanted a machine, and now they have a machine. So if you get somebody in the mainstream, which you really don't, if they have charisma, it's by luck, and it's bargain. To me, it's bargain basement charisma. You know what I'm saying? It's bargain basement charisma. That's why people get mad at me, because I'm still on Twitter, and I had asked for years, give me a Drake bar. I still don't have a Drake bar. Give me a Drake bar. Since he's so good, give me a Drake bar. I don't get Drake bars. I get like kids level, kids level,
I don't ride on a beat, I parallel park on a track, like those type of bars.
yeah, like baby stuff, you know what I mean? Like baby wordplay, you know what I mean? Kids wordplay, kids, children, like
But that no, it's true.
yeah,
It's simple
that
words.
stuff. And then he coons and he swoons, and it looks sexy to girls and to some men, I guess. And so it blows up, you know what I mean? But it doesn't have the charisma of a Sky Zoo, or or the
How's his
charisma
first album?
of Rim. I mean,
Salvation.
there's so many guys with charisma out there. You know what I'm saying? I mentioned Elo Kush. How much charisma do you need? You know what I'm saying?
I gotta find. I ain't up on Elon Kush, but
Yeah.
I'll definitely get into him now.
Come on. You don't. There's so many great guys, and then that's what the beauty of seeing this though. You see Rome Streets. Rome Streets would be some guy that would graduate if it was all right, because Rome Streets has the shell where you think it's just all about violence and killing, so it's good to cross over. That's all they want to hear. They just want to hear violence. And he's athletic, he's young, he's handsome. He rhymes about violence. It's cool. Put him on there. You know what I'm saying? But when you watch him perform, he has so much energy, so much dynamic energy. He has a lot of energy that you didn't see. And, you'd have to go back for guys that had that kind of energy in their lyrics like that. He has a real gift. When I knew, and I started to say Rome's was in the book, you saw I was saying Rome's is going to be that guy. He's going to be a guy. I was like,
and then like now where it's like, yo, he is that guy.
Yeah. And the reason I said that was because when I wrote that, I interviewed him with Toshi first. So humble, on time. But what was interesting about him was we were also doing an anniversary for Classic Stone Radio, and we did a show, and the weather was terrible. It was snowy, slushy. And then I heard that he had an injury in his foot and he was wearing a brace. The foot braces that you have to walk with? We had the shoe. He had the shoe on. So I was like, oh, he's not going to go through the snow for all this stuff. He get this shit all fucked up.
Oh, I bet he did go through.
Right? He's the first act. So if he doesn't come on time, you got to keep the show moving and skip him. Not only is he there on time, though, he's there with that energy that we all see on these videos now circulating with the 96 Audi. This is before 96 Naughty. He's doing all his songs. He's doing the songs he's got up till then. Maybe mainly Street Pharmacy, because that's pretty much his best stuff at the time.
At the time. Yeah.
Right? That's what he's got. That's his major work right there. And he's hopping on the stage. He's getting everybody into it. And I'm like, yo, this guy not only went through all the trek of all the weather, he got upstage. He got on stage at the right time, though, and he just tore it down. He set the stage up for the rest of the show. He set the stage for the rest of the show.
That track you mentioned that produced by J.O. Swift, 96 Nautica, when I think you posted a video of Rim. One of you two posted a video of him performing that track recently, and like that stage presence, I seen the crowd like like that was nuts. The crowd control, that's what it was called.
Oh my goodness.
Like the way he can control a crowd, it's just like Jesus Christ. But when you said Street Pharmacy, that's when I was
always, everybody has all the good MCs have great flows, but Rome is blessed with a flow that is very hypnotic, and he gets you into this, and he keeps on talking and like this, and it just draws you in, and you keep on going. And what one of the gifts of that flow is that a lot of people, you won't know it unless you see him live, but it's a flow that a lot of people have, but doesn't succeed on stage because it usually gets drowned out by the beat.
Yeah.
Whereas
when you're on stage, it's different.
Yeah. Rome rhymes a lot from the upper. So you hear a lot of vocal launch. So he says everything like it's like this, And so, right? So it's automatically like his mic could break and he still would launch. Like he got this part of the diaphragm. And if you ever see him, he's fit, he's in shape. So he clearly works those vocal cords and he's athletic shape. And that has something to do with it. You know what I mean? That has something to do with it. A lot of these MCs are very athletic, like literally athletic.
Like look at Riggs.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Riggs. Yeah. I mean, he's like bar stars over here,
but it's like a lot of these artists or like a Rome Street. So like when you said his best then with Street Pharmacy back then, that's when I interviewed him. And then like it's like what you said, he's humble. And then but I never knew like until I talked to him. This guy was from the UK running of Skeptica. And I was like, oh, so you seen the real grimy shit.
Mm-hmm.
Like UK don't play. I heard some shit about the UK.
One of the things I talked to Rome about, and I talked to a lot of guys, other guys that didn't get to come out in the 2000s, but they were there.
Yeah.
Not everybody got to make records like Sky Zoo in 2006 and go on. Even though they weren't noticed, they got to release records. Rome and a lot of other guys, they are guys of the 2000s, but the labels wouldn't have them. And so they developed their craft further while they're in the dungeon. And so when we see them blow up, their first record isn't their first record. And that's why they're so refined and so skilled. You know what I mean? They're amazing. That's why it's also another reason it's the dark ages, because a lot of great stuff was in the cocoon.
Yeah.
A lot of these great MCs that we love today, like Rome, they were in the cocoon, not able to come out, but now they're out, and it's just killing the whole shit.
Because I remember OG, he don't even listen to like music like that, but he likes that old Cypress sound, right? So when he's like, he hit me one day, he's like, yo, you check out these kids that DJ Muggs works with? I'm like, yeah, I interviewed somebody. He's like, yo, you know this guy named Rome Streets? Yo, this guy Rome Streets is fucking killing on his definition. I'm like, yo.
It's so dope that people first hear Rome Streets from there. Look, I had heard some Rome Streets songs earlier, and I thought it was good, and then I lost track.
Yeah.
When I first heard Nasal Drip.
Oh, wow. Oh, shit.
No, there's no way that this guy, if he can perform this song this way out there, because Nasal Drip has a dance hall intro. It's so Medina, so Brooklyn, with
drives you into
with the air horns at the right spot, and then and seeing him perform that live, like people talk about 96 Naughty, but I know he's got to be doing Nasal Drip, because
Nose Candy 3 Nasal Drip, right?
Nasal Drip is before 96 Naughty, and the way that beat, the way that beat booms, you know, because the break is not really like there. It's really a bass drum stumble.
Yeah, it just kind of like goes in there like this.
Yeah, it's amazing stuff, man. It's amazing stuff, you know. And once I heard that, I was like, and it was Toshi. I was like, okay, I'm gonna wait to contact Rome Streets and stuff. And then Toshi was like, you know, because he'll be like, oh wait, you know, I'm thinking of interviewing Rome Streets. And I was like, oh hell yeah, push the button on that. Push the button. Fucking duh. Because Toshi will ask me, and I'm like, yeah, you know, because most of Classic Storm Radio, he decides. I don't, you know.
Okay.
If there's an artist that I'm like, I do not like him, Toshi, then Toshi will come up with somebody else, you know what I mean? Like Toshi, he loves everybody if they got drums. So he won't really fuck with Ka.
Oh, I was gonna say he must not like Rock Marciano.
He likes Ka. He likes Rock Marciano, but he goes, where are the drums? Where are the drums?
It's like,
and I'm like,
they don't make music of drums.
Toshi, he's the ultimate boom bat man. He needs drums, you know. He's the ultimate boom bat man. He needs drums, you know. See, and it's his show, and he breaks so many artists. You know what I mean? Like people don't know how many people contact him, and now that I get to do interviews, people love. I got love for my interviews. They got love for the music that he puts on with Rock the House. They know that if they get on our show, it could help them, you know what I'm saying? Along with the few others, yourself, Gorilla Grooves, you know, the few shows that are really killing it. You know, there aren't too many, you know? Yeah. There aren't too many.
And I don't know what's with all these fat white podcasters out there, like trying to come into the game. And like, yeah, I'm just going to say this right now because like you're a peer of mine, but like, dude, a lot of these fat white podcasters out there,
yeah. I'm like this, right? There's no way that I could be in hip hop this long and I didn't see a lot of white folk. The truth is that one of the reasons, and it's not their fault, one of the reasons the dark ages because there are a lot of reasons, right? I'll give you another concept of mine. In the late 90s, college radio became white kid run.
Oh, sure.
Now, we don't look at it negatively because some of those white kids are legends. DJ Eclipse, Stretch Armstrong, you know what I mean? DJ Riz, right? These are greats and legends. But for those three, you have multiple other white kids taking over and deciding what is Black music legacy. I used to have arguments with some of these DJs, not those guys, and be like, They used to have arguments like this, right? Breaking Atoms is better than All for One. Brand Newman's All for One, right? And I'd be like, they're not very comparable. You know what I'm saying? Because Breaking Atoms is classic because of the style of sampling and ingenuity. Some of the lyrics, because Large Professor killed it with a lot of songs. But Brand Nubian is a classic because of what they were saying and the knowledge of self in there. You know what I mean? It changed the way the culture of the 5% Nation of Gods and Earths can relate themselves inside records and put ourselves in the forefront, because hip hop doesn't exist without 5%ers. We were there at every turn. And unlike reggae, where the Rasta was in there because of what Burning Spear and what Bob Marley did, the Gods weren't rhyming that overt. Even Rakim's verses weren't as overt. It was what Brand Nubian did. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no.
They weren't as overt. So I would be arguing something like that with white kids, and that's exactly the perfect example. The value of Brand Nubian's All for One was, he'd say, oh, it doesn't have the value of Breaking Atoms. I'm saying they're both classic albums, and you don't know the value of One for All, of All for One, because you don't know what it was like to be black and not have the knowledge of self. Like for me, I come from a neighborhood in Brooklyn that didn't have the knowledge of self. When people talk about the heart of Medina, that's a term you hear on records. That means the Bed-Stuy and East New York, even Brownsville area, because the Gods, when they first got knowledge, they went to those parts of Brooklyn first to spread the knowledge of self, right? Not Sunset Park. They did not come to Sunset Park. They weren't really there. So when we talk about certain records, right, a lot of history goes in the records. And if you don't know that history, they're putting the value on what the records, and they don't know where it's coming from. And that was the problem. And with the white kids that blog now, I think they also don't know a lot of the history. Like, yo, I go to genius.com and I be fixing certain lyrics.
Yeah, because it's not
the fix the lyric, right? I'll fix the meaning of the lyric. I've done this with RZA, just fooling around. Like when I first got the account a long time ago, I fixed a RZA lyric, and then I fixed a Doom lyric. And I was like, he was speaking in the Supreme Alphabet. This is what it means, and this is what he meant. And people like correcting me and saying, no, that's not what it means. And I'm like, nigga, if you go to get the knowledge of self, you are probably going to be taught by me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
It's always the young ones who think they know.
And I'm like, how are you correcting me? I'm actually the actual standard of what the shit means. I would tell you what he meant on the song, and if he made a mistake with the song. But it's like with the white kids podcasting, right? I think it's also the forum. People have come to respect a forum where white people validate you. And that became a thing with hip hop. So what I get, sometimes I get saddened because a lot of artists I don't try for, they'll willingly go into other forums of people that don't really know the music that well.
Yeah, exactly.
It would be those kind of forums, like more like a suburban forum. And it'll be like, I'll see hieroglyphics on them. I'll see like a lot of guys from the 2000s that are really great and never got their chance to be interviewed really in depth. And they'll be on those forums. Whereas the hood guys that do interviews, they'll be doing the papooses and everybody that got lost that I don't give a fuck about either. You know what I mean? So there is a place for it though. You know what I'm saying? Like I remember I had the chance to interview Mr. Lift. And a lot of my concepts of the dark ages though, like with everybody, with tech, as you saw, with steel, it resonated immediately. This really was the dark ages that they came out in because they saw what was happening and what they weren't able to break into. You know what I mean? And with the kids that do it, it's really a shame that they get all of these views and they don't really have any perspective.
And they don't know like the history of that artist.
Any of the history. It's
like
crazy.
The one, I've been trying for this forever. I've been trying since 2018. He'll go on a platform where the guy don't even know like the history, and the guy would be like, so I just listened to your music about 2 weeks ago. I got everything. And it's like,
right.
What the fuck?
Yeah. Yo, when Toshi gives me somebody, because I don't pick them, right? So they become the more challenging work for me. So he picks somebody and I'm like, I know about them, but I don't really collect them or I don't really listen to them as I.
Yeah.
Toshi, I'm gonna need like a few days to
Do
really
your
dig into it
research.
and go through like a 48, 72 hour. I just listen to that shit. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? But if there's somebody that I don't really listen to, I take a long time to really go into it. Like when I do my show, the Power Right show, I just did Raz Fresco. I'm only listening to Raz Fresco nearly most of the time. You know what I mean?
Oh wow.
Almost all the time.
Are you early on him too? I seen you post. I think it was like from 2014 or
Well,
20.
Raz Fresco is a 5%er, right? So I met Raz Fresco at one of the every year the Nation of Gods and Earths has what we call a show and prove. That's where the term comes from, show and prove. And the show and prove is to prove that Allah the Father, even though he was assassinated, the best part is the children. And it's an event to show the children all over the world their gifts, their talents, and we come in all over the world, and all the gods and earths from all over the world come and celebrate. You know what I mean? And it's on June 3rd, 13th, the anniversary of the day that he was killed, right? And at a show and prove in like 2014, I met Raz Fresco, and then I started to do the analysis to his books. I mean, to his music. And I was like, oh, okay, that's peace. And he was like, I got this album coming out, Paulo Frescobar, and it's got the book that you edited on it. Because I edited the Knowledge Itself book. And I was like, oh, wait, that's peace. That's peace. And so I started to do the analysis to him. You know what I mean? So I end up, it's just because I'm around a lot of people that I hear a lot about a lot of music. I think that if you put yourself around the music, you'll find the best of music. The real value I think that I would have is being able to accumulate it and then being able to detail it. You know what I'm saying? And because I see a lot, I'm able to prophecy what is going to happen. So people see like me saying it's invisible renaissance as a prophecy, whereas I see it more as like a really good observation. You know what I mean? Because I was seeing enough.
See, I like how you put it like that too, because like there's a DJ Toshi interview that I really wished I was out when I seen the name on it, I'm like, yo, he interviewed this guy like Sonny, and then but it wasn't you. I really wish you did that Joel Ortiz interview he did. I would have liked to see what you had to.
That Toshi did that Toshi
Yeah,
got.
yeah, I really wish.
Yeah, I wasn't able to do it. Yeah, I was with my kids, and I was like, you know, a lot of times if I don't do something with Toshi or anything, it's because I chose my kids. My whole life, though, that's
first, though.
One of the most crucial things. Look, I've been doing it since '94, but once I had my daughter in 2001, my first daughter, it's always been the choice to have my kids, and then also my class. I've been teaching every single Thursday for the last 21 years. So pretty much every great event on Thursday, which I was telling the God Salim that he rolls with Rock Marcy and all of them, and he'd be working with them. I was telling him, yo, yeah, I'll never see a Rock Marcy show again because y'all keep doing these shits on Thursday. Every Thursday, you're here at Sony Hall. I'm never gonna see y'all. And he was like, oh, I gotta fix that. I gotta fix that. But if it has to do with my kids, I could get free tickets and all that kind of stuff to Ghost and everything like that. I was like, yeah, I seen Ghost, you know, but I can't see my kids. You know what I mean? So it's always my kids. You know, if I missed the Toshi show, I would have loved to do Joe T. He's a fellow Boricua, but I missed it.
Because that's what I mean. And like when I see like when I hear like a UFO feed, there's Ghost up out. I can't say.
But you did a great interview with UFO Feed. You know what I mean? You really got a lot of emotion out of him. He's such a passionate brother. I love the interview you did with UFO Feed.
Yeah, I didn't expect. I appreciate that. I like yours too. Like, but that's the difference between me
and that's why I watched it, because I was like, I don't want to do what he did, because if you're a hip hop underground nut like we are, you would be watching both of our shows.
Yeah.
So I want to give you something different than what you gave him. You know what I'm saying?
And then there'll be other people out there who go interview the same guys we do and then copy off of us than what we do. And it's like,
yeah, and
where's
they ask the same question, you know? And then like,
and then but it's like, and then they're like, we the best, but it's like, okay, I understand you're starting out. You get, I see that a lot now too, because I think it's the maturity in me because I'm getting older. When I was like, yeah, I'm the best. And when you get older, it's like, no, I'm not. Like, let me humble myself.
mm-hmm.
But like a lot of them, they're not humble. They'll get like a an AA Rashad interview, and it's like, I interviewed West Side Gun. It's like, dude, do you even know the history of AA?
You know what brought the humility out of me? I'll go out there. I've been in this long enough. I go out there and I'll say I'm the best. Anybody asks me, I think it's stupid if I don't say I'm the best writer. I think it's stupid if I don't say I'm one of the best interviewers ever. That's silly talk. You know what I mean? I'm just fooling myself. You know what I mean? I earned that. But when I'm at home, no, I'm studying every aspect to find every flaw. And I've been humbled a long time ago. I've interviewed legends that have been fucking wipeouts. You know what I'm saying? Just fucking the worst interviews ever. I remember I was with my twin because, you know, back then, you know, we had to take a portable camera. I tell my brother, I said, yo, Manny, come with me, please, man. I ain't gonna get a picture with him if you don't come with me. You know what I mean? Right? So
Poor cell phones.
So I'm there, and I was with a legend, and I'll tell you, I'll tell you off air, like, and it went terrible. And I was like, yo, I'm done with this shit, man. Fuck this shit, man. And he was like, yo, my brother was like, fuck him, fuck you. You do what you're doing, though, because you're doing great. Just fuck him. And then I was like, yeah, fuck it. I'm just going to keep doing it. And it has nothing to do with the guy being a kind of a jerk, but he just was a really bad interview. They didn't want to talk. And a lot of the guys from the 90s that do great interviews, they were horrible interviews back then. Yeah, now, all of a sudden, they want to talk about everything that they love. They're these great open books. And I'm like, so you want to tell the white boys that, but you didn't want to tell me that when I was asking, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And it's just that's frustrating, but funny at the same time, kind of funny to me. You know what I mean? Kind of funny.
Oh, now you want to send, now you want to tell these.
The thing that really kept me in it too was a lot of legends I scored with. And I the top of the list has to be like probably my third interview. Third. It's not like my 10th or 11th was Cool G Rap.
Oh wow, that's your third interview. Oh,
and it was a phone interview because he was living in Arizona and he had just released the Roots of Evil. Right?
Oh, wow.
And I hadn't done that many interviews then. I had done Legends, but it was different. Like I had done Tats Crew. Different. I had done Tats Crew, and it was so peace. It was like being in the community. I went to Hunts Point to see what they do, graffiti legends, and I was like, they treated me like family. So it was different. It was like home, right? But then, and they don't get interviewed that much. But when I did G-Rap, he was so dope. He was such a good guy. And he was like, where you from? I was like, from Sunset. Oh yeah, Papa. Yeah, I know about Sunset. I know about Icon. And he named some MCs out there, right? Icon and I forgot who the other brothers, and Destroy. Icon and Destroy, because they were Sunset Park brothers that were rugged, and they never got their chance because the labels didn't take Puerto Ricans. If you look Puerto Rican, that means if you were too light-skinned, they didn't take you. If you were dark, you was like, don't say you're Puerto Rican, but you'll be on, you know? And that's a fact. And so if it wasn't for people like him, though, I don't think I would have been able to keep going. And some guys are so nice. Like when I tried to make my first magazines, when I told you, when I did Our Swords, I gave Killer Priest a copy of that when I interviewed him, and he was so supportive. He was like, yeah, you got to do what you're doing. You got to do what you're doing. He was like, wow. And yo, you go home, you're like, yo, Killer Priest told me to keep going, man.
Yeah, it's like, yo,
are you gonna stop? Yeah, I mean, you're not gonna stop, you know? Like I was in the game longer, but just an example, I was doing a Lavo Revolt. When I was doing Lavo Revolt, Small Time Magazine, KRS-One had done a ton of interviews already that day, and we were gonna be the last ones, and we didn't have that much time. The publicist was being a dick, right? And it wasn't G Simone, it was some other person, like saying you only have like 20 minutes. And I was like,
yeah, all right, I hate that shit.
I'm going to do the best I can with these 20 minutes. So let's go. And KRS-One gave me 3 hours.
Holy shit.
He gave me 3 hours. And I was like, yo, amazing. It was amazing. You know, like this is the stuff that kept me in it though. You know what I mean? Ice-T too, man. I lost that one too. That was a crate. I lost that one.
Wow.
And he gave me an hour, you know, this is old school where I had the cassette. And I had to
actually had to like sit in front of them. It's like, okay,
2-hour cassette though, you know. That's why I know KRS was 2 hours, because I ran out of the cassette. 2-hour cassette ran out though, and I put in another one, and it went a whole half, you know, which is an hour, you know. But it's really just set moments where people were really great to me, you know. But I love this music, so I kept going, and now I get the honor where I'm one of the few to have written about it. So some of my work becomes necessary, you know.
Because I think
it's a blessing.
I think like us as journalists and like media personalities, instead of like trying to be in competition. It's like, oh fuck this guy, well, I do better views than him, I do this. It's like, dude, we're showing it together. Like it's like I forget what movie it is, but it's like weak together, strong. And it's like, dude, we are together. Because if you look at like a lot of like these podcasters who say they're at the top, like they don't really do that much interviews with their peers.
Mm-hmm.
Like I like our and then like the thing like with our age difference too, it's like your idols like Bonz Malone and all those guys that you send, it just differs from mine and how media because mine are like a Combat Jack or like a Doggy Diamonds and like they may be people like you may not agree with, but it's what was at the time. It was when it was available for me at the time now too.
Right.
So it's what's available and then what you
They,
gravitate to.
right. They kept it alive though with the quality. You know, they kept it alive. You know.
Yeah, it was to salute to Combat Jack, man.
One of the things that the greats, the interviewers that came after, like Combat Jack or Doggy Diamonds, I have my issues. I don't think that they make a lot of journalistic mistakes, and I don't think, for example, I don't think Doggy Diamonds knows the music as well. He talks about music like he knows what a good song is, though. But when I say know the music, though, I mean like actually mine through each artist's catalog in detail and know it. When you listen to interviews with me, I know their whole catalog front and back.
I was gonna say, I was like, you go through their stuff.
I go in depth into it. So that's what I mean. And what happens is the gift that they had is that they showed the artists that weren't fucking with media. They showed them again that, yo, some of these journalists you can make a good rapport with, because that's the problem and that's the devilishment that Vlad did. He developed a rapport with people, and it got people thrown all the way in jail.
Yeah,
he literally got people in jail.
They got people that don't even want to do it.
Yeah,
because of
you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like, you know, when we do interviews, we're like, nah, you know, off air, like we just write them up, we write the interview and stuff.
Yeah.
I would constantly be in places where I'd see illegal activity and things like that. I'm like, yo, that's not for the piece, right?
Yeah.
So when you're on air, though, there are things that you don't ask about and you don't go into. How do you do that? How about not talking about the personal life? You know what I mean? All these guys did street shit. When I talk to UFO Fev, right? I don't get into street shit.
Yeah,
we talk about the quality of the music. And you know what? We got to hear about his history and a lifestyle that was about the music and his fatherhood, his own fatherhood, raised by a father that was a musician. You know what I'm saying? You don't get to hear this kind of stuff because all people want to ask about is, was that real? Like this Vlad asks this people like, was that a real gun? I'm like, yo, you really gonna ask that kind of shit?
Did you know Tupac?
Did you know Tupac? Like, you know what's funny? He also, you know, people go, just because you DJ doesn't mean shit.
Yeah, exactly.
It's one of the titles that doesn't mean shit, because if you go, I was a DJ, that just means that you were at some club playing what everybody liked. Yeah. That doesn't mean that you had an ear for music. Vlad and other people, they constantly make horrible takes that show that they know nothing about the music, and people are cool with it. And it's because the artist is not putting their foot down either, and they don't care about the forum. You know what I'm saying? They don't care about the forum. You know what I mean? And now that one thing I push for, and that's why you see it now, every episode I've been doing in the Power Right Show, I'm flexing muscles. I'm getting every artist that I know, and I'm not allowing them to say, oh, I can't do it now, this and that. No, you're going to be on this time here. Come on, we need to come do this. You know what I mean? Because there are other artists, though, that they know, and I've contacted them, that they should have been interviewed with me. And they're interviewing with a lot of these other people, Elliot Wilson and other people and shit like that, and getting nothing out of it, though. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that post, that's it.
Yeah, it's like, whatever. You know what I mean? And that's why I don't want to hear any of these artists complain about, oh, yeah, nobody understands my music and stuff.
I seen this one guy talking crazy. He's like, yo, hip hop media alley sucks. And I should have like, yo, you just need to look harder.
Yeah. You know, find the forum and elevate it. And I'm gonna keep it real. This is a beef that I know you have. I love a lot of the guys, and I'm peace with them. They'll show mad love. But to most of the people that I do shows with, that I interview, a lot of them don't repost it. Yeah. A lot of them don't repost it. And now you're not just you could help your career by a quality interview, but you're also helping me a lot when you do that. And people don't
Yeah.
do that. And then there's other people that they have graduated where like they don't need my help anymore. So they don't come back to do another interview and let me continue
Yeah.
detailing their catalog. You know what I'm saying? There are people that I know is gonna come back because they got mad love. You know what I mean? We talk about Rim and things like that. Rim could blow up, you know what I mean? And be on, he could be on, you know, MTV and shit, and he'll come back and do an interview with me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But there are others that they haven't. And whether they know it consciously or subconsciously, they've done something that hurts the media,
Yeah.
the documentation of the art, if you don't come back, because there's nobody out there or up top that is going to do better than what we just did.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's taking a chance with
And that's also why a lot of the great journalists they ended up losing, becoming lesser known and into a niche market, like a Davey D, you know what I mean, who's a great journalist. You know what I mean? How much of the Bay Area did Davey D document? You know what I mean? Davey D was one of the first to have exclusive, in-depth articles about the industry on the internet, along with quality music. But a lot of people don't know about Davey D because they didn't want to boost him up. And so his market got smaller and only known in the Bay Area, though. But he's a legendary journalist. You know what I mean? That's what's happening. Adisa Banjoko, another one. You know what I mean? These are people that was there. But they, you know, the forums aren't there. You know?
Right, that's why, like that. You know how like there was like I don't like to say change, but like you kind of know how like quote unquote how lyricism came back and like the later. I think like that's what we're gonna see within media soon, because this media, it's so saturated nowadays. It's like what's different? It's like okay, drama, drama, drama. Oh, this is actually a good interview. He actually talked about what I wanted to hear. But half the time, it's like I don't want to hear about who he fucked.
Yeah, that's really whack.
I don't care about his lotion. Like get the fuck out.
When I say this is an element, right? It doesn't mean that everyone has to be a writer and a poet as I am.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that they have to be a writer of prose as I am. What it means though is that everyone that does it has to be creative in the way that they present their interviews, in the way they present their persona, and really be detailed and say, listen, I'm a singular voice and I represent this, and I'm interviewing you so you could represent what you're about in my forum. And then they make their forum essential. And that's something that I didn't get from hip hop. I also got that from a lot of my other influences in other journals, like Juan Gonzalez and his interviews, the great writer, former Young Lord, who does Democracy Now, co-hosting. The great Gil Noble in his interviews, you know what I mean? Just watching a lot of these old legends when they do interviews, you know, and it's not even in the fields that I'm in, you know, watching great journalism and being that form of respect, you know, where like people will go like, okay, Lo interviewed him. That means that he's a quality artist. That's the difference, you know, like they'll go, oh, he's on this guy's show. Well, he could still be trash, you know? No, if we interview him, that means that there's somebody I'm missing. There's somebody I might like.
Because I'm pretty sure you even had like people try to buy your way onto the show. It's like, no, man. Like I just like if I like it, I'll interview. You can't like I don't do that. Like I never understood. It's like, yeah, let me buy my way onto it. It's like, dude, you can do that with so many other ones. Why the hell would you want to do that with mine?
Yeah. People don't do that with me often only because they know that it won't work. So it doesn't happen as much.
No, you're probably telling us. See, I'll leave them on red, but you would probably tell them off.
It doesn't work anymore. You know what I mean? I'll be like this. I'll write about your music if you pay me, but I'm gonna write whatever I feel like it, and it'll be like a donation.
Yeah, it's not like but like they want you to like I want you to big it all up. Like don't say nothing negative. It's like, well, what's
yeah, and I've gotten that too, where people would give me that record, and I would like off the strength, I'll write about it when it doesn't come out as good as they liked it.
Yeah, like, and it'd be like, oh, like
and I'm like, we're in 2021, Lo. Like, it's like 40 years of recorded music.
Yeah, like
your record is not gonna bust into the top all time just like that. You know what I mean? Like
sometimes it takes like a good 2 years
to bust. That's another thing too. Like when we talk about like works and people go, oh, look, all the best stuff already passed. That's not really why you should be listening to all this music if you love hip hop, because the music has been around a long time. Though it's too hard to just break off and be the greatest ever. You know what I mean? That's stupid. That's silly talk. You know, and you can't, it's very hard to pioneer something. That's why I say KRS, Rakim, because they have they have the twofold. They pioneered, but they also made classic albums. Nobody else has those two things together. You know what I mean?
That's true, because like you can pioneer, but it's like, where's the album?
Yeah, I don't think people pioneer. I think that they elevate certain things. They might be elevating certain techniques. That's what Chuck D called. Chuck D called it revolutionary versus evolutionary. So he, for example, Big Daddy Kane is revolutionary. Biggie is evolutionary. You know what I'm saying? And you know, so I've always gone by those like rules. You know what I mean? Those rules that a lot. Chuck D really was. He's a musical genius. You know, Chuck D.
Yo, shout out Chuck D, man. He felt pretty. Yo, that's a legend right there.
A lot of high journalism is from him too. By the way, also too, Questlove. You know what I mean?
Ah, he's very particular on how the way he writes. Like he can take you into his own world just by his. He did what piece did he?
I don't know if you remember this, but in the late 90s, he actually used to write reviews in the very, very beginnings of OKPlayer.com.
I don't.
He also gave.
Wait, OK Player?
When OK Player started, it was a website for the Roots only. And Questlove, it was like a blog for the Roots. And Questlove would write on it. And he wrote down this piece about how to make a review. And he said, it's not a review if you don't listen to it at least 3 to 5 times. And I'm like, yo, these are things that the magazine guys wouldn't even say to you. You know what I'm saying? Like a lot of magazine editors will give you a record and they don't even tell you. Listen to this shit at least 4 or 5 times, please, before you start writing shit about it.
Yeah, listen to it once and write it.
A lot of big time magazines editors, they won't even tell you that. They'll give you the records and 250 words, have it to me by Friday. But they won't even tell you, like, yo, make sure you listen to this shit a couple of fucking times, you know? And people are like, yo, when it comes to a buck, like, yo, I just listened to it once, you know? And so you get a review of whether somebody likes it, but you don't get a review about what the music is. And that's where it's bad, because at this age, because I've heard so much music, I can tell what I like and dislike, but not what I like and dislike is here and here. But what is good music might be over here. There is good music that I don't like. There is no bad music that I like. But there is good music that I'm not crazy about. Yeah. So when I write reviews, I take into account that my like and dislike shouldn't be in the equation all the time. And so I take it out all the time.
So you know how what you just said that about the reviews. So when we see the reviews on like Raekwon's only proof for Cuban Links 2 at the time, this is a different age in media. So we're accepting it differently, and people didn't know what the hell he was talking about. It's like, okay, well, you don't understand the first one, then why would you do the second one?
Right, you're impaired.
So, exactly. So when we see him announce only built for Cuban Links 3, and whenever he releases it, we're going to see people reviewing it, just them talking in front of the camera, just be like, man, this should have been like all 3 of them put together, but it's like it has nothing to do with the original. But I don't think Ray would do that to the 3rd installment.
I don't know. Yeah, I'll tell you this: Ray's a good example, because people think they know his lyrics, though, but
no, I had to get the Wu-Tang manual to understand how to go.
Raekwon is another MC that shows why GOAT is such a bad term, because to me, Ray is one of the greatest writers of all time. The thing is, though, is that you lump him in his category of content, drug dealer.
Coke rap.
Whereas when you get to the details of how he's writing, there are so many devices and so many skills and so much detail that you're like, yo, other guys can't even write like this. Like, if you really study Miguel Piñero's poetry, which is a precursor to a lot of hip hop as well, right? And the New Yorkers Poet Cafe that it led to, Raekwon has a lot of phrasing that is very similar to that, even though I'm pretty sure he may not have read any of that. You know what I'm saying? So Raekwon is this incredible, legendary writer. I think the problem with hip hop is that, here's an example, right? They'll review Raekwon, right? And they'll say, we don't need to know about the 5% because Raekwon said he's a Muslim now, right? But it's still erroneous, because Raekwon's language and his dialect is still nearly 90% how we speak. So our dialect is still being used. You know what I mean? So the lifestyle that he was ingrained with and that he lived. The only reason that he's saying he's Muslim is because he isn't saying that there is some kind of mystery God in the sky. I don't know what he's named, but I will name him Allah. That's why he's saying he's Muslim. We say that there's no mystery God. But when you look at the language of how Raekwon talks, he's still using mathematics. He's still talking with the alphabet. He's still referencing our lessons and ideas. So if you analyze him, you still would have to know what that stuff meant. Same with Ghost. You know what I mean? Look at the verses that they had. They weren't speaking like Muslims. They were speaking like 5%ers.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's part of the lifestyle. A lot of, as a side note, a lot of MCs often say that they're not 5% because they don't want to be bothered by who? Us 5%ers. You know what I mean? They don't want us to say, yo, what's your righteous name? Or you said something wrong about a record though. You know what I'm saying? Like, you got this thing wrong. You quoted this degree wrong. Like, they don't want that kind of challenge, so they don't do that. And trust me, a lot of artists that rhyme now, they come to learn from me. You know what I'm saying? As willing students or just trying to learn more about the 5%. You know what I mean? So it's a whole culture. You know what I mean? So to me, those blogs or those YouTube channels that are doing that, you know, just suburban kids, they can never analyze the music as someone that really gets into the gritty and the nitty and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they're just doing it for views.
And I think that, and I think anybody can, you know what I'm saying? The thing is that they have to have a love for really analyzing all of the research that's out there. So they can't catch up, but they don't do it with the love. They don't do it with the cross reference. They don't respect the other cultures. They'll go like this, like, like, for example, one of the biggest disrespects to like us Black people in general, original people will go like, oh no, it's definitely a culture for everybody. You know, when you say that, you're not saying it though, because we're not selling it to you. We sold it to you already. So you don't have to say that.
Yeah.
You're saying that because you're trying to say that the concepts and the ideas that are special to us are not as relevant as the ones that everybody understands simply. You know what I mean? And that'll never be true. That'll never be true. You know what I mean? If you do hip hop and you really respect it, you have to do some kind of research to understand and respect the history of the research there. It's like nobody goes into roots reggae and enjoys roots reggae and it really tries to study it and doesn't respect Rasta.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And try to learn some of the things that Rasta was really living. You know what I mean? Because it's a beautiful culture. You know? It's the same thing. You know, it's the same thing with the 5%. I guarantee you, when you look at from the 90s on, anything, from the 80s on, so once Rakim hits there and even before, there is some 5% influence everywhere.
Yeah, it's true.
That no one even knows, like whether it's Queen Latifah and things like that. Where do you think all this stuff comes from? You know, it's everywhere, you know? And I think that these bloggers, they don't care about that because they don't want to put, they no longer want to and feel they don't have the need to put this Black music in the spectrum of Black reality and culture. And that's what I don't like.
Yeah.
I mean,
and it's like half the time, like, just like, it's like even like simple knowledge. Like, I remember I was going through a fight when I heard these, like, they were like high school kids, but they were arguing about Wu-Tang. And one of the guys, like, who the fuck is Raekwon? And I was like, what? Like, I was like, that's when I just had to leave. But like,
yeah, how can you even talk about that?
Yeah, but there's people that arrogant out there. You say like, "Oh, we know what we're talking about," and it's like,
oh man,
it's like name me 5 Black Moon songs. Actually, better yet, name me 5 Black Moon. I mean, name me the 3 Black Moon members. Like, you can't do it. Buckshot, 5 FT, and DJ Evil D. Like, come on, guys.
And see, there's little things too, because without Dug Down succeeding from the 2000s into the 2010s. Probably hip hop stumbles.
Yeah. See, and because it brought a balance to it. That's why I like to refer to myself as a child of Duck Down.
Because Wu-Tang's records weren't that good. You know what I'm saying? The greatest Wu-Tang records were so underground and from the family, not from the Wu members.
Exactly.
And they weren't blowing up. And Dug Down records, and so they were kind of in the middle. Like, this is commercial, this is the underground, and Wu-Tang records are hovering in the middle, lost.
Yeah.
Whereas Duck
Down
Down
had it
goes
figured
out
out.
of the dark ages because Sean Price blows out in the middle of the dark ages into this new character, Sean Price, into the 2010s. And without Duck Down, I would say too that as a foundation, like a beacon, like if you have like a beacon station that's keeping everything,
That would be that.
that's that, because Goblin Studio, where a lot of the great MCs, Spit Gems, Shazil York, Starvin B, Sped De Niro, one of the great engineers, Tragedy Gaddafi is doing shit there. Everybody. Sadat X is doing his albums there. That is led by Sean Price.
And
you know what I'm saying? And if they're not doing their records there, that studio that probably doesn't get enough money to keep going.
there was a time too where I remember when rock wasn't as popular as rock. This is when Sean Price was stepping. Because I remember at the time when Nocturne, everyone was like rock, 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 and then like in the dark ages, Sean P transformed into he went from rock to Sean Price, and it's like that's like
why, right?
That's what I like to say about these reinventions.
In Helter Skelter,
yes,
he didn't have the inflection. He didn't have the inflection, and he didn't master the tempo.
Yeah,
like,
there's something
when Sean P rhymes, he masters the tempo where he tells you, "Listen, nigga, I'm right here," and then keeps going. Like he shows you that he's right there, And before that, Rock was doing that because his voice was so dynamic.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? And I mean, Rock was doing that, and when he goes solo, it all comes to. It all comes out, with Onion Head and all those other songs. And I don't know if you remember, he did videos for every single song.
I think because
he made there was a DVD with almost, I think every song, but almost every song from Monkey Bars, they did a video for.
Yeah, because
I remember this because I always get mad at Day-Sun. Day-Sun had it because he was the editor-in-chief at The Source at the time. The God had it, and I was there with him, and he had it, and I was like, yo, we got to take this home. We can't let nobody else take it. And he was like, yo, I got this. I'm going to take it home. And he didn't take it home, and the shit got lost. And I was like, and I was like, I was like, damn, man. And it's so stupid because I could have just called Duck Down and asked him for another copy. You know? And I didn't do it.
Because I remember there was a time where 50 Cent was trying to sign Sean Price. Do you think that 50 Cent fucking copied Sean Price's Monkey Bar? Because you know how he did music videos for every single song. You know how 50 did that after Massacre?
I don't know. I don't know if he copied that. He may have gotten the idea from that. Yeah.
Because there wasn't because I remember there was no other artist.
I think that making a video for every cut really didn't have the impact people thought it would have until one guy came along, and that was Ka. When Ka did every video for Grief Pedigree.
I forgot the second one. Yeah.
Yo, to this day, right? I joke. I used to joke with Ka with this all the time. If I put my arm around my oldest daughter and I go, "They stand the test, got Father Time rhymes," she gets totally angry with me. She gets totally angry with me because she knows, he's rapping Ka again. Stop it, yeah. Because I would always do that at the least. You do it at the most least expected time, though. You put your arm around your child, you give him a hug, you go, "They stand the test, got Father Time rhymes." I know, because when that came out, I was like, yo, this is the dopest shit. Because you know why? I was working a job that used to always leave me with headaches. I hated it. And I would go home and I couldn't read or write. And I would just listen to Ka's Grief Pedigree. He didn't have the drums on it. It was just like kind of his words in the groove.
Yeah.
So I was like, yo, it was like listening to lyrical Sade. It was groove. It was soothing and it was deep. It was gritty. I love that record, man. And I love the entire Ka catalog. It's just amazing.
I remember when I first got it was The Way of the Samurai. I was like, oh.
Ooh, man, that's my favorite album of his.
Yeah.
As a martial artist, it has to be my favorite album. And that's one of my favorite books too, you know what I mean? That he used throughout that album,
So were you early on Kai when GZA was early on Kai? Like, the Pro Tools album when he had Kai?
I didn't know, no, because when I heard the GZA album, I'm a GZA fiend. He's one of my favorites, and So I bought every Jizz album. I was like, yo, this kid's voice is so dope.
Yeah, it was like,
Because it was so deep. It was like, yeah, it was like, yo, I don't know why he featured this kid, but
they
I'm
gave him
actually
two
not gonna
verses.
delete it from my thing because the shit sounds crazy. It was dope, but then I didn't hear from him. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah,
I'll be honest, like I didn't see, I didn't see how big Mossberg was, until I started to listen to it the year after.
oh wow. Okay.
After I make my best of list, I always go back, and that's why I hate doing them. I go back and I say, oh shit, this is not the record it was. This one's even better. You know, and you always have those every time you look back. So that's why I feel it's so useless. But I always go back and say, oh my goodness, I didn't have Rock all the way at the top right here. And I didn't realize what he was doing. And I only realized it because I started to hear when I saw a show and Sean P did Snow. He'd put a verse on Snow and he was doing it on stage. This is before he recorded it. I saw him do it on stage and I was like, yo, that beat is just unbelievable. And I started to listen to it again. I was like, yo, it sounds on the surface, Rock Marcial, like he's just doing a lot of drug shit. And I remember him from the Wu Meets Indie and all these other things. And I had the UN album. You know what I mean?
Are you out?
Yeah. You remember You In or Out, You In or You Out, that album with the horrible cover, right? I even had the album. What's the album with the green cover that was unreleased?
Oh, Jazz would know that.
Yeah. I have that one too. And because once it has Large Professor, I go get it. I'm a Large Professor fiend. If he has something to do with something, I go get it. You know what I mean? And then I heard it and I was like, yo, Rock Marcial is dope. But it was really when Rock Marcial made Reloaded that I was like, oh, okay. Because that was where he did really something different. You know? That was where it was next level. His rhyme patterns and everything like that. Because we're used to it. But if you listen to Reloaded at that time, he's still a little fast on Mossberg.
Yeah.
Still a little fast. On Reloaded, he's rhyming so slow. And I have this joke. I've written it in a couple of pieces, and I may even made a poem. It's called that. But I have this word for Rock Marciano, the way he rhymes, and I call him ejaculates. You know what I mean? Because it always sounds like he's rhyming like there's hoes in the studio with him, and he's just being disrespectful. And every bar is basically an ejaculate. Like he busts a nut after every bar. Like, yeah, take that. Like, right? It's like he's the ultimate tip. So I call his bars the ejaculates, you know what I mean? And I don't know if he knows that, you know what I mean? Because I deal with Jazz a couple of times, you know, but and I call his bars the ejaculates. But it's funny, but it's a way of honoring him because he's like, nobody does that, you know what I mean? He rhymes down to you ain't shit. So it's like he's always busting on somebody, you know what I mean? Whether he's busting a gun or he's busting a nut, he's always busting on somebody, you know?
I'm gonna re-listen to Marcy Long and just to see.
That's what makes it so comedic to me. It's so funny though, you know what I mean? Like my brother, he doesn't know hip hop like that. So I give him a couple albums and he cracked up when I told him that they named this. He said, why they name that song Tom Chambers? And I said, yo, because it's about that coke, these white Tom Chambers. He just cracked up. He's like, yo, that shit is hilarious. Like they'll do stuff like that. I find, you know.
That's the fucking record of knowledge that I remember.
Yeah, but when he did Reloaded, I'm telling you, a lot of people did not like that record in New York.
Because a lot of people
they were like, yo, these beats are great. They're wasting Alchemist beats. Why is he rhyming so slow like that?
Yeah.
And if your ear is accustomed to stuff, you didn't rhyme that slow in the pocket. That to a lot of New York ears, it sounded like he was not in the pocket.
Like he was lazy.
Yeah, like he's not caring about the pocket. And there's only one guy in New York that was rhyming out of the pocket at will, and that's really Jay-Z.
I was gonna say Ninth Prince, but okay.
No, but that's by accident. That's because
okay.
I love Ninth Prince music, but he cannot rhyme in the pocket. That's more of a skill thing. He can't do it. You know what I mean?
Oh shit.
I love Killer Army. Killer Army is like, I'm a martial artist, so Killer Army has been used more than I need. You know what I mean?
Oh, I bet.
And Don Pacino, that's my big bro. You know what I mean?
Oh, sure.
But Ninth Prince is always out of the pocket, but I don't know if that's because of skill. Jay-Z really has skill, even though I never support Jay-Z. But Jay-Z rhymes out of the pocket, and a lot of times it's deliberately on purpose because he gives no fucks. Yeah. He has no fucks.
He did a lot of that of the Jay Electronica album.
Yeah, he did the whole shit. The whole shit is out of pocket though. And it's a way of when an MC has a persona of being like dominant and dominant over you,
Okay.
they could do those devices where like I don't even need to rhyme in the pocket because I'm so nice. And then do the pretty hiccup, right? Right? But when I heard Rock Marcy, it was so slow, a lot of people's ears couldn't catch on to it. But I was like, yo, my obsession with originality, I was like, yo, this is original though. And if you listen to what he's saying though, there's a lot of cleverness in the bars. You gotta give him a chance. And then Alchemist though, one of the keys to Rock Marcy is that his production and Alchemist production hit a peak at the same time.
Did. Yeah.
Because
2012.
Yo, if you listen to Alchemist's older production, he has a couple of doozies.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't know his style. Like, what's his gonna be style? He's sampling what he's sampling now, 60s and 70s rock music.
Before that, there was like that Chemical Warfare. It's like, well, I don't know about this.
Chemical Warfare sampling a lot of 60s and 70s rock, but he's using their 60s and 70s rock rhythm. So it's like, and it's coming out like looking for a hook, like
maybe I'm
finding the rock hook, and then, but now, once he starts by the 2010s, he's like, I'm gonna use whatever part has the melody that I need and want. Yeah, and yo, look at the songs that he put on there. I mean, that shit was.
His work with Boldy James is like, I think that's who he gives his best beats to, is like Boldy James.
You know, I don't know. I don't want to make my decision.
Okay, well, I don't know about the T Price in China, but the first one they did, the very first one, my first chemist set.
I will say that he gives a lot of great beats to Boldy James.
Yeah, like he has
Boldy James, who people see. That's where you got to have journalists, because Boldy James gets dissed because he's boring, but hip hop is a listening music. So there's gonna be MCs that are more monotone and that you have to listen to.
Yeah, like he's not made for like you actually have to sit there.
If you need to get hyped up for a run or for a weight training session, and you need the guy to be yelling at you, then yo, we got that. We got MOP. We got how about Starvin' B? Everything Starvin' B does is excitable.
I'll go listen to him when he's rapping over one of the rap tracks of Rusty Jukes.
Yeah, Rusty Jukes. That's bench press music. You know what I mean? And he's got what, 10 albums, 11?
Yeah, Rusty Jukes.
Rusty Jukes. If you can't work out and you got just Rusty Jukes playing, then you need to just take a break. You can't get through it. I mean, seriously, there's some MCs that like, yo, if you need to work out, then just play that music. You know?
He has this one song of Black Moon that gets you hyped up for anything. It's off his album of Marco Polo. He's like one of the only artists with a Black Moon feature. What the hell?
Rusty Jukes really is dope live too.
Yeah.
And the tradition. That's what set Duck Down apart too. Duck Down, their MCs are actually live MCs. So they'll never be dissed by the underground, because even if they make songs that people don't all like the whole album all the way through, which it's far and few between, right?
Yeah.
Black Moon, Smith & Wesson, Sean Price, Helter Skelter, both of them.
I remember when
OGT when they do rhyme. But all the acts from Duck Down, Rusty Jukes, all those guys are superb live performers.
Yeah.
So they still can be in touch with the community. It's just crazy. You know,
like,
it's crazy.
I remember when Pharoah Monch and Black Rob were with Duck Down. I was like, yo, like this is like, yo, recipes to Black Rob right there, man.
Yeah, Black Rob, yeah. Never got the chance to make great music to me. He could have made such greater music, you know what I mean? When I talk about Dark Ages, the type of music we got from Black Rob is exactly what I mean, though. A great artist that was presented to us more as like, let's listen to listen to some street niggers that are really street niggers on some commercially viable stuff that you'll like. You know, that's what it is. Packaging streets for the masses. And it was disgusting to me. So all of the value of Black Rob's albums, and even DMX, a lot of times when it happened, I'm not talking about now, but when it happened, it was very hard for me to appreciate at all.
Well,
because I knew what it was being used for. You know what I mean? I knew what it was being used for. You know?
Because look, you look at the video for Whoa, and it's like they're all on a street corner, like with like, and like we know like what's that for? Like they're all like it's supposed to mean they're all selling dope, and it's like you can make a hot song and make it off the corner. It's like, no, dude, like I see what you mean by that. That's be hard to be like.
I've taught students worldwide, and when they find out how much I've done in hip hop, they ask me hip hop questions. And I have people ask me from Germany and other countries. And in the 2000s, during the 2000s, like 05, 06, they'd be like, they would ask me, is it really like that? And I was like, what do you mean? Like the video, like when Prodigy, when he was rolling through the street and all the girls were there. And I'm like, is it really like that? Not even shook ones. There was a video where we had a lot of girls and everything. And I'm trying to figure out the video.
Hey, love, because I don't remember. It's probably with G or somebody.
Was it the Keep It Thorough video? I don't remember. You know, I don't know if he was strolling through it.
Maybe it was the hold you down one.
Yeah, it was one where he was strolling and everything. And they would ask me like, yo, is it really like that? You know what I mean? Like the streets and everything. Like there's just girls that like in the street like that. I was like, nah, there's like girls aren't like just twerking like that.
It's like
today, girls think that they should be doing that on the corner.
Yeah, that's
girls that got nothing to do with selling their bodies. They're not selling their bodies or nothing like that. But they think like, yo, so I could be cool. I think I should be doing that shit. Whereas like when I was younger, when we was kids, obviously it's people rhyming on the street. Yeah. When I was growing, it was either people doing hip hop or people having fun arguing about hip hop. You know what I'm saying? That was it. That was it. You know, like when I was a little kid, it was the decision like, do I break without the linoleum and break up my clothes and my mama will kill me? Or do I wait? You know, nah, I gotta go in now. You know, like these are the choices that I was dealing with. You know what I mean? And of course, I chose a lot of times to break up my clothes, and I got a lot of whippings. But you know, but that's what it was. You know what I'm saying? But I think hip hop today is wonderful. You know, the fact that this music got commercialized this bad, Lo, right? And that me and you, we actually have to go through a list, right? You know that you do this too. You're like, damn, man, it's a lot of people. Who do I ask? I got to ask at the right time. Yeah. Help them out with their record release. So this and that. And I want to ask all these people, like, and you got to find the right time.
Exactly.
That never used to be the case, that there was this much music that we could choose from. You know what I'm saying?
I remember it was a set schedule, like, okay, next week we'll get this guy, and then next week we'll get this guy.
There's so much music, and then we get surprised by some people's albums and others, and you know, it's amazing. It's amazing.
That's what I like about today's too, because we don't have to be force fed. That's why when people are like, oh, I'm being force fed, it's like, dude, you have like the whole world of music.
No, you know, yeah, like if you're into music and you say you're force fed, you're like in the Matrix, like you're in a fucking Matrix.
You know because you can. There's literally stations out there who just play no beat, no drum hip hop. Like it'll be like low.
You know, Lo, like I still haven't heard the new Car record. I'm waiting to relax and everything so I could listen.
Oh man,
I've already heard
the same.
Yeah, no, because I've been waiting. I did my show yesterday, and now I could listen to it. And I still haven't heard. I'm telling you, albums I have that I haven't heard yet. That I'm so excited to hear. I haven't heard Kaz album, Vakil's album. I just got my man Big Flip Poppy. I still haven't heard King Magnetic's album. That's my man.
Oh, wow.
Right, I still haven't heard it. Him Lo, I haven't heard his album, his new one with Gallo Point. I love Gallo Point.
Gallo Point, yes, sir.
I love Gallo Point, man. I love his crates. I love what he samples. You know what I mean? I listen to a brother I know. There's a brother I know, Jaffet Music, out of I think he's in Boston and stuff. Dope MC. I heard his. My man Frost Gamble. You know what I mean? Dope producer. That's my man right there. I heard his. His was dope.
So okay, you know I mean? So you're naming off like a lot of these peers who I've known in the underground. So I gotta ask, do you know who Norm Regular is?
Wait, say his name again.
Norm Regular.
No, that doesn't ring a bell. That doesn't ring a bell.
So he's like my cheat code to this. Like he'll like recommend an artist and I'll go listen. Like he put me onto Lord Juco. So, but his rhyme pattern.
Juco, that's a dope MC right there.
But Norm, like I think Norm is like Baby Kai. Now I know that's a bold statement.
That is a bold statement, yeah.
But when you listen to this, no, I swear, you come back, you're like, yo.
No. Hey, listen, if you said it, then I'm gonna listen to it. You send me his links and shit like that.
I'll send you exactly when I said that exact thing. I'm like,
but there's so much though. That's why I like the books I'm writing now and everything. They're really trying to encapsulate the entire universe as opposed to just what I love. The next book I have that I'm putting together. It's already put together. I'm just rearranging it, and I have to write an intro to lead it in. is it, as I say, the creative element of the creative part of my element as a writer is the poetry, the prose. So I can't extract the prose out of pieces, but I can extract the poems that I've written inside of these pieces. So it's called, the book is called, it's gonna be called Art on Art. And it's gonna have, it's literally all of the poetry that I've written these last, what is it, since 2015 up to 2020, you know? And it's gonna have the poetry that literally was embedded in all of these essays, interviews, reviews that I wrote about music, events, and all these kind of things, you know what I mean? And some of them are in Premier Hip Hop. You could see the poetry, but they're gonna be extracted. So you're gonna see how they stand up on their own as creative pieces, you know? And it's dope, you know? I know it's dope.
I'll definitely be checking that out because when you sent me that first one, I was like, yeah, this guy can actually write, man. Like this guy's actually like, I'll read a book and I'll like, I'm not reading that shit again. But that feels too real. I find myself like going back to it and like using that as like some kind of manual or just like,
oh, that's a piece, man. That is
like, because I don't know, it's just something about that. It's like half the names you have in that. I had interviews with these guys and it's like, yeah, he understands this renaissance and like what these guys mean for their craft because it's not like you're not in there writing. These guys have a heartbeat and he got great chemistry. Fuck that. You're writing like, okay, when these guys put out an album or their structure as a human being, they know what they want. They know that they're like, okay, they can go the sellout route, but they choose to say in the route that they choose that their fan base knows.
mm-hmm.
Like Griselda, everyone references Griselda, yeah, because they're bringing the game back, whatever. But Griselda is gonna cross over at one time. Don't you think like a lot of these artists like they're afraid to cross over because they may not have that guy? You gotta do this. You gotta do this. But when we see like people like Griselda, I think that gives more artists hope, like a Rome Streets.
Because I do. It definitely inspires a Rome Streets. You know, one thing I don't like. One thing I have too is the problem with the listener. A lot of listeners are egotistical, so they don't want to be honest and say that people like me and you did that research and that we know that if they listen, if you guys check us out, you'll find music that you want to hear. People don't respect the journalism anymore. And yet they're getting all their news about hip hop from the journalists they say they disrespect.
Yeah.
You know, and part of that is like Griselda's a great argument because I'll tell people Griselda's dope. They are the tip of the iceberg that I'm talking about.
Yo, exactly. There's so
the
much
depth of that iceberg is colder than the tip. Not to diss Griselda, but we know if we break up Griselda into their constituent parts, beats, rhymes, content, there are people in all over this universe, this underground universe, that are better at each of these things.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yo, that's because that's what got
me. Right.
Because it's like
no, the music is not over. They're not an anomaly. They're not an anomaly. They're the tip of an iceberg. And that's exactly why I call it the invisible renaissance. But a lot of listeners too are egotistical. And I find out listeners more my age than younger listeners.
Yeah.
Younger listeners are more cool with listening, checking out the things I share. Whereas listeners that are my peers in age, they become totally assholes.
Yeah, hesitant.
Oh yeah, I didn't miss hip hop. It got sold out, so I left it. And then I came back because Griselda's keeping it alive. No. You left too. You left too. And you're not in touch, old man. You're the old man. Even though we're the same age, you're the old man because you're the one that's not in touch with what you think you know. And that's why a lot of people my age, they were like, oh, the Locks, they took it back to show you what MCing is about.
It's like, no, the Locks always been like that.
The Jadakiss didn't kill anybody that wasn't killable. It was a very easy win. You know what I'm saying? That was Curry at the free throw line. That was Curry at the free throw line. That was a free throw. That wasn't a three-pointer. That wasn't anything else. That was easy pickings. And they just made it more theatrical because they're dynamic like that. But the MCs that we have and the caliber of MCs that we have in this underground, I'm telling you, if they were able to give in the forums
I know.
to display how charismatic, how dynamic, how addictive they are to the mainstream, you'd see a lot of people getting into them. But they don't want our people to have a music like that. They don't want it.
everybody was like, I remember when Joe Budden retired, everybody was like, oh, we're missing that void, we're missing that void. I discovered somebody like a Bub Rock who has its own twist to it, but he'll give you that raw emotion.
Right, yeah. I mean, that's a joke though. Like when people, you know, they're good and everything, but like the whole what was they called? The when Joel Ortiz and Budden and all of them were a group.
Oh yeah, okay. I can't say
that was hardly like bringing it all back. You know what I mean? It was lesser music. It was weaker music, and it was some good battle bars. I mean, it was nothing special compared to what was being done. You know.
I think if they never would have signed to that shady label, it would have went different because look how Griselda got that freedom and then they stuck to their sound.
It's give and take though. They might have made better music, but they wouldn't have made music that people would have overhyped either.
Do you think like it was the time they came out too? Like it would have like it was a wrong time? Like if they would have came out like
everything, but look, Lo, everything to me in the 2000s is the wrong time. Everything.
Yeah.
The only person that was released at the right time was MF Doom. And because it was revenge.
Yeah, because that man was
he was avenging everything that was wrong about music. And that's why he was the greatest of the 2000s.
Yeah, because you mentioned MF Doom from that era, and they always been a mad villain. Always. Don't matter what.
Yeah. Always, you know. But I say the artists of this decade that we love, they haven't had the chance to show how charismatic and dynamic they are at the world stage. And that's the only thing that we're missing. No one's going to tell me that, mind you, if you fix it for explicitness, Rock Marcy would be a hit on TV, anything, anywhere. You know what I mean? An actual absolute hit, you know? In fact, I think that Rock Marcy is a bigger sensation than anything Griselda would put out. You know what I'm saying?
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, that's fact. He dominated. He's the most dynamic. He was charismatic. You know.
He actually has like, yeah, like women going like, because like a lot of these underground shows, like you'd be shocked to see women. I remember seeing this Rock Man. There was women everywhere in this fucking.
Oh, women go crazy for Rock Marcy. Like they go crazy for Rock Marcy. That's a fact. That's a fact. You know what I mean? He's a dynamo. You know, right? He's a dynamo. You know what I mean? He's that kind of guy. You know, he's that like he's got the Method Man quality. You know what I mean? You know, with like they're dynamic on many levels. You know what I mean? But I never get upset with all the music. I get tired of listening to music, but I never listen to music and get tired of it because it's so much good music.
Yeah, you're never like, I gotta listen to this. You're like,
it's more like I'm in a perfume shop, you know, and I smell too many good perfumes, so now I have to, you know, recalibrate my nose.
Yeah,
it's kind of like that.
Different senses. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. It's kind of like that.
Because you can listen to an album and then listen to a different album and it'll be a completely different vibe and you won't enjoy it because that other album you heard before, it's like, it's not really like the vibe I was going with.
Right, yeah. Now, I think it's so much fun. It's so much fun to go through the music and pick the vibe that you want to listen to. It's so much fun to see all the music that, you know, and even for myself now, I'm embedded in the music because people ask me to record with them. You know, and people ask me to be part of things, like now being part of Marcano, you know, Prince Powerful's Leftovers, you know, and being part of a group. And we're an anti-gentrification group, and we make music like that. Like we have another album coming out, and I lead off the album again. You know what I mean? And it's great, you know. Which at least people have been asking me too. I am making an album also, you know, and it's a spoken word album. You know, so I have a couple of cuts and stuff that people haven't heard before. You know what I mean? And there's a couple of MCs that they have asked to be on it, so they'll be on it.
Oh shit, I'm definitely checking that out.
Yeah, so that's in the works too. You know what I mean?
Well, this went a lot longer than I expected. I only expect like we went for like almost 30 hours right here.
Oh man, yeah, we definitely built for a long time though. But yo, there's so much to share with you because a lot of stuff I share with you, I want you to know as a fellow writer, a colleague. You know what I mean? Yeah. And now when we let go, I'm gonna give you my man. So anytime you wanna text or call or anything, we build. You know what I mean? Definitely.
And then likewise too, because like artists watch our show, so I want to give like an artist who you're gonna interview in the future, like you know maybe like Bub Rock.
Bub Rock would be a superstar. He's TV worthy. Like he's got that like superstar quality.
He's on his MF Doom time right now, though.
Yeah.
He's like,
Yeah. But he really has star quality though. He's very
right.
charismatic, very charismatic.
But I wanted to give like a lot of these artists out there who tune into your show to give a little bit more about you, because when you're interviewing a guest, yeah, you give somewhat of your personal life, but they never got like this.
Oh, indeed.
And when I checked out the Lord Seal one, I'm like, 8 minutes? I can't do 8 minutes. I need more than 8 minutes.
Salute to Lord Seer. Yeah, salute to Lord Seer.
Well, there was a 6 minute and an 8 minute one by one.
Yeah.
Damn, I need like a fucking hour of this guy.
It's a lot, yeah. It's a lot, yeah.
Man, if you ever want to come back and promote something, man, my platform is open to you.
That's peace, man. That's peace, man. Yeah, Lo, definitely.
Is
you know, wait, you're ever in New York, you gotta come and stop by the show. We'll do it together. You know?
Oh yeah, for sure. Wherever I'm in NY, I do plan to come because I gotta see NY.
Yeah, we talk some shit about hip hop. You know what I mean?
Is there anything that you want to plug in before I let you go, man?
Nah, man. You know, like I got the Filtered Reel book. I got books coming. You know what I'm saying? I still have my Reel of 2020 ebook. That is just $5 if you know, got the Cash App soon.
Yes. The link's in the description below if y'all want to support my man.
Oh yeah, definitely. You know what I mean? So I got those books, and I give you a free book. I give you an old book old ebook called the Sunez Crates, which is almost like, it's about 300 pages of old articles, you know, that I wrote in this invisible Renaissance. I'm just talking about this Renaissance. I'm not talking about 2000s or 90s. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
I have really written a lot of materials. You know what I mean? So, you know, I give that out for free too if you purchase the Filtered Reel from me. You know what I mean?
I gotta tell everybody now too, when he's talking about this Filtered Reel book, I guarantee you, like, this book is like one of the books that you will go back and read to. Like, this isn't Harry Potter, this isn't J.R.R. Tolkien. Like this book right here, I swear you will come back to this book once you listen to these artists. Like, damn, he really understood this. So, man,
yeah, I definitely have more coming and cataloging and chronicling the music though, you know. And I also have a book that's going to be about the Dark Ages. You know?
Oh, yo,
which is gonna have a lot of my experience.
Yeah, I can't wait for that. The Dark Ages, I'm gonna keep my eye peeled for that.
Yeah, so it's a lot of books. So I end up writing a lot of books all at the same time. You know what I mean? So I end up with my hand, my pen in a lot of books at the same time.
There's a creator like that too. I forget, but he does that with songs. He's like, I have to write like 50 songs at once.
Most likely, the next book is gonna be the Art and Art book. You know, because I know I have a great artist who's crucial to the Invisible Renaissance too, who's designing the book too, the cover. So it'll be dope. You know what I mean?
Well, like I said, Sunez, you're welcome back anytime, man. SkillastratorLO, you definitely got my respect.
Yeah, SkillastratorLO, the lone low light with the home sewn garment, the voice was filled, the true and living God. Hector Lovo cantando.
And